The figure that had appeared was a 300-meter lion covered in blood-colored fur. It had 3 heads, 1 large one and 2 smaller ones, growing out of the side of its neck. It emitted a terrifying pressure. All of its hair was standing on end. A strong flame energy came from it, twisting space around it. What powerful flame energy! It's not inferior to the heaven-incinerating flame at all. Chen was shocked by that sight. Ever since he had come to possess the heaven-incinerating flame, he had yet to encounter another flame as strong as it. The lion let out a roar toward Chen. Although Chen didn't understand what it was saying, he could tell its general meaning. If you don't want to die, then scram. The lion didn't pause as it rushed forward. It didn't give Chen or the butterfly woman a chance to get out of its way. It was extremely tyrannical. Its red fur glowed, and flames were constantly surging out of it. There was no way the two of them could get out of its way on this narrow path. Chen saw the pale face of the butterfly woman. Looking at her wings, he realized she had to be weak to fire. Most likely, her wings would be destroyed if touched by these powerful flames, and that was where most of the power of her cultivation base was located. However, if she jumped into the lake, she would instantly be frozen and killed. She panicked. Fuck, I've seen tyrannical people but not someone even more tyrannical than me. Chen grabbed the butterfly woman's arm and flung her into the air. She let out a startled cry. Kneel! Chen roared. He leaped into the air and smashed his fist into its large head. Boom! Violet ripples surged on the lake, and waves of ice chi soared into the sky. Chen and the lion fell off the floating logs and into the lake. Up in the air, the butterfly woman was still letting out startled cries. Although she didn't understand what Chen was saying, she knew that he had saved her. However, she couldn't save him now that he had fallen into the lake. In this place, her powerful wings were useless. She reached her peak in the sky after being thrown and slowly descended. The lion appeared, standing on top of the lake. Flames enveloped its body, and divine runes appeared on its feet. It wasn't frozen. Chen was also enveloped in flames, standing on top of the lake and looking at the lion. The lion stamped down on the water, transforming into a red bolt of light shooting at Chen. Just now, neither of them had managed to get an advantage over the other. However, Chen had attacked from a stationary position, while the lion had been charging forward. To be even in power after that showed that Chen's raw power surpassed the lion's. I thought you were so badass, but you're only this powerful. A flame spear appeared in Chen's hands, and he stabbed it at the lion. Its giant claw met Chen's spear. Boom! The lion actually flipped into the air due to Chen's attack. It let out a pained grunt as it tumbled back. The butterfly woman stared in shock. She had never imagined this seemingly weak human would be even more terrifying than the lion. She immediately ran along the wooden logs once she landed and stopped near the whirlpool. If she went down, she would be safe. However, she didn't immediately leave. Instead, she watched as Chen fought the lion. The lion let out a heaven-shaking roar. All of its fur stood on end, and its body seemed to grow larger. Suddenly, its other 2 heads opened their mouths as well. 3 fiery rays of swordlight shot out at Chen. Chen felt a chill, sensing a fatal danger from them. Chen immediately dodged. Lightning wings appeared on his back as he instantly accelerated to his peak. Shockingly, a large cut appeared on the lake where the first sword light struck. Water droplets filled the air and transformed into frozen crystals. Chen immediately unleashed a wall of flames, blocking the ice crystals. He definitely couldn't touch those. If just the surface of the water was so terrifying, then what about the water that shot out of the lake? Chen jumped forward, charging toward the lion. It opened its mouth, and 3 rays of sword light shot out again. They looked like they shot out together, yet there was a strange interval between them. They came at different angles, and according to reason, no matter how he dodged, he would be struck by one. This was one of the lion's divine abilities, and it was incredibly powerful. However, Chen's body twisted strangely, and he unfathomably managed to dodge all of them. His speed was too fast for one to see how he had done it. Having the 6th sense activated really is nice. If it was before, Long Chen would only be able to take this attack head-on. However, now he could use his sixth sense to dodge this move. Any move that involved any trickery wouldn't be able to fool him. His head was also clearer than ever. He could clearly calculate the timing of any attacks coming for him. So these three strange attacks weren't able to strike him. No matter how powerful the move, if it couldn't hit him, it would be useless. Having this sixth sense was extremely helpful. Long Chen felt like he had been an amateur before opening his sixth sense. Only now was he a real expert. The lion seemed to be shocked that Long Chen could dodge its attacks so easily. Furthermore, his speed hadn't dropped. It suddenly roared, and its body grew explosively. It once more opened its three mouths, and three huge bolts of sword light pierced through space. At this time, Long Chen was already close to it, and now that its body had grown larger, this attack was far too large for Long Chen to possibly dodge. You want to force me into a head-on exchange? That's fine with me. Split the heavens 6. The flame spear in Long Chen's hands transformed into a flame blade. A huge flaming saber image soared into the sky. The huge saber image crashed against the three bolts of sword light. Flames exploded, and the immense force caused the water around them to explode. Countless crystals shot out. In the distance, the butterfly woman covered her mouth. She hadn't expected two crazy fellows to start a life and death battle in such a place. When the flames vanished, it revealed a huge hole in the lake. The surging waves had frozen. Within those frozen waves were Long Chen and the three-headed lion. They had turned into frozen statues. Cracking sounds rang out as the ice encasing the two of them shattered at the same time. Long Chen slashed his flame saber at the lion once more. The lion's fur had started to dim. Unleashing consecutive powerful attacks had taken up a great deal of its energy. Hence, it turned to run. You want to run? No matter, you have to leave something behind. Do you think you can make me do so much work for nothing? Roared Long Chen. He shot after the lion. The lion used some kind of secret art, and its fur began to ignite. It accelerated, going even faster than Long Chen. However, Long Chen had taken the initiative, and the lion's body was too large for it to dodge fully. Long Chen's attack ended up taking one of its legs. Huh, a leg's not bad either. What the fuck? Long Chen had just caught that leg when it suddenly vanished into ripples. Are you an idiot? None of the life forms here are in their physical bodies. What did you expect to get after wasting that much time and effort? Evelmun's sneer rang out in Long Chen's head. All of Long Chen's trump cards had been moved into his primal chaos space before entering the Netherworld, and so Long Chen could summon Evil Moon whenever he wanted. Furthermore, Evil Moon could see everything that Long Chen could see. Long Chen had actually forgotten about this and had been thinking of bringing back the lion to study it. However, he quibbled, What do you understand? This is called teaching a lesson. If you didn't even vent after something like that, would you even be a man? Long Chen returned to the floating logs. Even after such an intense battle, he hadn't gained anything. Only at this time did he sense the immense pain radiating through his body. Without even being aware, the ice chi had already invaded his meridians. He immediately began circulating his flame energy to expel it. Just at this moment, the butterfly woman slowly walked over to him. The woman brushed her right hand in front of her chest, most likely as some kind of strange and ancient etiquette. Long Chen didn't know what she was saying, but based on her expression, he guessed she was thanking him. No need to be courteous, it was that big, hairy fellow, he was too irritating. I didn't like the way he looked. I was just venting. Long Chen began to gesture as he spoke, telling a story with his arms and expressions, hoping she would understand. Maybe if you didn't gesture, she would understand better. But the way I see it, it looks more like you're trying to seduce her, laughed Evil Moon. How could my communication abilities be so bad? Raged Long Chen. He thought he was showing what he wanted to say very clearly. Seeing Long Chen's expression, the woman laughed. However, seeming to feel it was impolite, she quickly stopped. She began to speak again, and following Long Chen, also began to gesture. However, he was unable to understand anything she was trying to say. Furthermore, he found that her spiritual fluctuations were completely different from his own. There was no way to communicate. As a result, the two of them just looked at each other helplessly. After a while, Chen felt like he had rested enough. He bade his farewell. "Goodbye, pretty lady." Chen didn't want to waste any more time. He wanted to take the white water. However, the woman grabbed him before he could leave. Holding his hand, she suddenly got down on one knee, causing Chen to jump in shock. "Hey, are you proposing? That's way too sudden. I'd have to go back and discuss this with my other wives first," cried Chen. The woman ignored whatever he was saying. She closed her eyes and began to murmur something. A hallowed light began to shine from her face. "Evil Moon, what's she saying? This couldn't be a marriage ceremony, right?" asked Chen. "Stop dreaming. Although I don't know what she's saying, this is clearly a prayer. Perhaps she's blessing your poser arts to continue improving beyond perfection so you can advance the entire art." "Fuck off," cursed Chen. He found that Evil Moon was growing more and more unreliable, even though they were now getting along better. The woman eventually opened her eyes. She actually left a deep kiss on the back of Chen's hand, causing him to jump. He had never encountered such a situation and was dumbfounded. An imprint of her lips was left on the back of his hand once she finished. Chen knew he was doomed. Once he returned, how was he supposed to explain this? What would Tang Wanner do to him? However, he then realized that this mark would disappear once he returned to his physical body, and there would be no proof of it ever happening. Could this be the legendary secret affair? After giving him this kiss, the woman respectfully bowed toward him, turned around and left. In the end, that legendary affair never happened. Evelmun's laughter was quite delightful. "Shut up. Your laughter sounds too ugly," raged Chen. Evelmun's laughter only grew more delighted. Chen cursed. Flame energy enveloped him again, and he rushed off. With his previous experience with the invasion of the ice chi, his body seemed to have formed a certain resistance toward it, and it wasn't as painful as the first time. Although the ice chi still managed to invade his body, he was able to resist it. Chen quickly reached the end of the blue region. The red lake was ahead. This was the red lake that Chu Jianying had encountered. Chen took out the black boat once more. He found that the primal chaos space's black soil was really miraculous. Even the red lake was unable to do anything to it. Only then did he jump in the boat and start using it again. He ran into trouble almost immediately after entering the red region. One of the fish monsters attacked him. He had already tested the water and found that it was strangely sticky. There was no way for his thunder force or flame energy to run across it. If he fell off the boat, it would probably be troublesome. Furthermore, he couldn't kill this creature, or countless more of them would be drawn over. It would then become difficult to advance. The fish monster was 30 meters long. His tiny boat was like a plaything in comparison to it. The fish monster wasn't trying to eat Chen. It was actually playing with the boat, using it as a ball. It threw Chen left and right. Chen ignored it at first, thinking that it would get tired of playing and leave. However, it seemed to be having great fun. Sometimes, it threw Chen into the air, making him nauseous. "Fuck, did I give you too much face?" Chen furiously slapped the fish monster, sending it flying. Its cultivation base wasn't very strong, so Chen used only the slightest power to avoid killing it. What irritated Chen was that since he had entered the Netherworld with the old man, he could only descend into the Whirlpool from the Black Lake's path. In the other regions, he was unable to descend down. That was why the only thing he could do was go all the way around through the other regions. At the bottom of the Whirlpool, he was unable to find any other path up. Then as soon as he had gone back up the staircase in the Black region, even it had vanished, so he couldn't even go back down. This Yellow Springs path was too strange. It had its own laws that Chen didn't understand. The fish monster let out a furious roar and charged back at Chen after being slapped. "Fuck, just wait." Chen returned to the previous region. Using the black soil, he made chains and roasted them with the heaven incinerating flame. It sounded strange as the heaven incinerating flame was said to be able to burn anything in existence. However, it was unable to ignite this black, sticky soil. Furthermore, using soil to form chains also sounded strange. The resulting chains were both tough and flexible. Long Chen made 2 300-meter chains, as well as 2 large hooks. As Long Chen was working on the border between regions, the fish monster roared at him. It didn't dare to go over to that region, but it was also unwilling to leave. Fuck off! After finishing the chains, Long Chen flung them at the fish monster. The sharp hooks at the end of the chains dug right into it, causing it to cry out and rush away. Pull my boat for me. Long Chen sat in the small boat and held onto the chains. The boat began to speed along the water behind the fish monster. However, the path it went was not a straight line. It was constantly winding as the fish monster tried to shake off the chains. However, there were countless barbs on the hooks, and there was no way for it to escape. Long Chen constantly pulled the chains, causing the fish monster to roar in pain. This fish monster was very strange. Its upper body was almost humanoid. It had 2 long tentacles, while its head was elongated and had a horn. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth, and its lower body had dozens of long tails. Each tail ended in a fin. You want to go down? Get up here. Just as the fish monster tried to dive to pull Long Chen into the lake, Long Chen pulled up. The fish monster was immediately pulled into the air. It tried several times without ever escaping Long Chen's control. It could only swim forward. If it deviated, he would pull on the chains, and if it slowed down, he would zap it with a lightning needle. In the end, the fish monster obediently pulled Long Chen's boat forward. There was a long-haired life form in the midst of crossing the Red Lake. He was blocking the attacks of a fish monster when he saw another strange fish monster speeding toward him. He immediately turned pale. Although these monsters weren't powerful, they possessed a strange power that ate away at his defensive barrier. Just one was his limit. If another came, he would be doomed. Mush mush. Faster, what are you daydreaming for? My time is precious. An arrogant cry rang out. The fish monster shot past him, and then he saw another figure right behind it. The fish monster and the figure shot past him in just an instant. Heavens, what was that? Cried out the life form. It knows the human language? Long Chen managed to catch what the life form said. This was his first time encountering a life form that spoke the same language as him. He had an urge to go back and ask him questions. However, he also didn't want to waste any time. He decided to just let the fish monster continue pulling him. Push. As Long Chen urged it on, he saw that it was already frothing at the mouth from how exhausted it was. However, Long Chen didn't care if it died. Didn't it think itself to be very badass? In the beginning, he had been forced to endure its attacks without being able to retaliate. Now the tables had turned. This thing might not be very powerful, but its recovery abilities were quite amazing while it was inside this lake. As long as it didn't die, it would recover quickly. The white lake quickly appeared ahead of him. However, once he got close to it, the fish monster refused to advance no matter how Long Chen struck it. It seemed it was absolutely terrified of the white lake. Long Chen could only release it. However, now his chains had 2 large chunks of flesh on it. The fish monster let out a roar and fled for its life. It didn't dare to do anything to Long Chen anymore. Long Chen slowly paddled his way across the remaining distance. He sensed vast life energy coming from the white lake. However, just as he approached it, he sensed danger. A black light shot out of the water at him. Long Chen had just gotten near the white lake when a black light shot out at him. Long Chen snorted and caught the black light with one hand. The black light was actually an iron tentacle. Get out here! Long Chen pulled with both arms and a huge object came out of the lake. Long Chen was dumbfounded to see that it was actually a 3,000-meter flying boat. How could there be a flying boat here? Long Chen was stunned. Was there someone like him who could bring things from the outside world into the Netherworld? Just as Long Chen's guard was raised, he saw a woman on the flying boat. She seemed to be 17 or 18 and looked just as human as he did. She had a normal person's legs, black waist-length hair, bright eyes, white teeth, and a nice face. The woman pointed at Long Chen and began to cry out. Long Chen just stared blankly as he had no idea what she was trying to say. However, based on her appearance, she should be expressing anger. Can you speak the same language as me? I can't understand you, shouted Long Chen. The woman fell silent. She suddenly ran back inside the flying boat and began to randomly pat around something inside the control cabin. Is she angry? She's going to use the boat to attack me? Long Chen was befuddled. Was her temper even worse than his? Can you speak the same language as me? I can't understand you. Just as Long Chen was puzzled, a voice came from the flying boat. That voice was identical to his. She had actually recorded what he had just said. The woman began to press even more buttons. She suddenly said, wait a moment. Long Chen jumped. She was actually speaking the same language as him. However, the way she spoke was still very strange and tough to understand. At this time, the woman began to be covered in runes. After a moment, those runes vanished. The woman once more jumped out. Long Chen was about to smile and greet her when she pointed at him and shouted, "You evil person, how dare you barge into my territory? Do you believe me when I say I can turn you to dust with a single thought?" Just now she hadn't known how to speak his language, and now she learned it instantly. Her words were now very clear and articulate. If it weren't for what had happened just before, Long Chen would believe that she came from the Martial Heaven continent as well. I don't believe you. Your bragging is a bit too much. Long Chen shook his head because he didn't sense any danger from her. More importantly, he didn't sense any hostility. How brazen! Do you know who I am? Demanded the woman. I really don't. Then let me tell you, I am the Nether God's direct subordinate, one of the 9 great guards of the 9 springs, and this region is my domain. You've barged into my domain, so tell me, how do you want to die? Shouted the woman, looking down on him. You sound quite amazing based on your title, said Long Chen. But of course, I am the one in control of this place. Killing you doesn't take any effort from me. Since you don't understand the Netherworld's rules, just answer a few questions from me, and I won't kill you. Long Chen frowned. Long Chen was also a conman, and he had great talent when it came to this regard. After many years of conning others, he felt like she was now trying to con him. However, he didn't expose her. Instead, he nodded. All right, I can answer your questions. The woman snorted. What's with that way of speaking? Aren't you afraid I'll kill you? I've lived for 3,000 years, and I've killed countless people. I crawled out of a mountain of corpses and sea of blood. The woman was clearly very dissatisfied with Long Chen's tone. That was because from start to now, he had yet to reveal the slightest fear. That made her uneasy. Amazing! Go ahead and ask then. Speaking of which, how old are you again? Asked Long Chen. Me? I'm 8. Hey, I'm the one asking questions here. Raged the woman. Long Chen, this crafty old fox, had launched a sudden sneak attack that instantly exposed her real age. As for being 3,000 years old, that was pure nonsense. Don't get mad, I was just asking randomly. I'm a very well-behaved, bashful person to be honest. I've never killed anyone, but I'm not afraid of death. People told me that once a person dies, they'll ascend into the immortal realm and live a carefree life. If you want to kill me, then kill me, said Long Chen indifferently. Who told you that? They were lying. When a person dies, things become much worse for them. That's why people have to live properly while they're alive, said the woman. So they were all lying? How evil! When I get back, I'll definitely make them pay for that. Miss, you really are the best. You're so beautiful and kind. Speaking of which, I still don't know your name, said Long Chen. I'm, you bastard, who's asking the questions here, me or you? Raged the woman just as she was about to state her name. If you have questions, then just ask. You weren't saying anything, so if I also didn't say anything, it would be awkward. Long Chen shrugged innocently. The woman's chest was constantly heaving from rage. Speaking of which, although she was rather lithe and had a pure face, the scale of her chest wasn't small. It could just barely be counted as causing surging waves. I'm asking the questions right now. What's your name? She demanded. Long Chen. Long Chen's reply was short and direct. His name had yet to reach the point of being able to shake hell just yet. Where are you from? I suppose the East? What is the East supposed to mean? It seems you come from some tiny place. Which world are you from? Yesterday? You don't even know this? Then which star field are you from? What's a star field? Long Chen looked at the woman in shock. Now he wasn't acting. Just where was this woman from? Fine, I get it. You're just a rookie and know nothing. You can leave then. I have to keep gathering cough. I have to go into seclusion. I'll spare you this time. The woman waved her hand in a shooing motion. All right, then I'll go first while you busy yourself. This water's so hard to gather. How much have you gotten? Asked Long Chen. Just a bit dash. The woman had gone a bit absent-minded after shooing off Long Chen. It was unknown what she was thinking, but she randomly answered Long Chen's random question. However, her expression quickly changed and she glared at him, only to see a naughty smile. Bastard, you are provoking the grand dash. All right, little Connor, don't think you can fool the old Connor. Your Tao is still shallow. When it comes to duping people, it takes hard work and experience. Someone like you with no foundation, no technique, and no plan is just embarrassing the art of conning, said Long Chen. I'm not a conner. You're the conner, raged the woman. Well, whatever. You're here for the white water, and I'm here to gather it too. Why do you have to force me away? Do you think you can gather this whole lake by yourself? Don't be so stingy, said Long Chen. I'm the one who got here first. You charged into my territory. How can you be so unreasonable? Raged the woman, puffing out her chest righteously. I'm unreasonable? Fine, you're right, this place is yours. Go ahead and slowly gather as much as you can. I'll switch to another place, said Long Chen. It wasn't as if he wanted to be enemies with her. Although this woman had tried to con him, she had never had an urge to kill him. He wasn't so narrow-hearted as to fight against her over this. Long Chen refused to believe that she could gather all the water of this giant lake. Your boat isn't even as large as mine. Even if you packed it full with water, how are you going to bring it away? Demanded the woman disdainfully. Long Chen almost laughed. Why did it feel like she was looking down on him just because his boat was smaller? Long Chen looked down at his small, shabby boat and then at her large flying boat. He supposed it did look a bit shameful. Ignoring her, he went around this region and entered the White Lake from a greater distance. When he entered the White region, his boat directly sank into the water along with him. He had forgotten that life and death were opposing attributes. There was no way his small boat made of the soil of death could float on this water of life. Seeing him fall into the water, the woman laughed at him. Fortunately, this water was filled with life energy and didn't harm him. What vast life energy! However, I can't absorb it. Long Chen's expression changed. Hey, do you not know how to swim? If you beg me, I won't let you drown, said the woman. Long Chen ignored her. He was sensing the rhythm of life within this white water. Its rhythm was completely different from a human's, and there was no way to use it to heal injuries. This water was useless to him. After all his trials to get here, he found that this water was useless to him. He almost shed a tear. Hey, isn't it just water? Don't cry. I can give you a bottle. You can bring it back and raise some grass and flowers, laughed the woman. She slowly sent her flying boat over to him. A chain came out of it for Long Chen to climb on. Raising grass and flowers? Could it be? Long Chen suddenly laughed. Thanks for the reminder. A large vortex appeared behind him, and the water of the White Lake was sucked in rapidly. A pillar of white water was pouring into Long Chen's primal chaos space. It rained down on the world trees. During this time, the world trees had grown to 12,000 meters. However, the larger they were, the slower they grew. After reaching 12,000 meters, if he didn't focus on circulating the primal chaos bead, he wouldn't be able to sense them growing at all. At this size, the world trees were able to provide him with a huge amount of life energy. The entire primal chaos space was filled with them. The world trees were able to give him enough life energy that he wasn't afraid of being injured at all. However, this was far from their limit. Their limit was several times this height. The larger the world trees grew, the more life energy they contained. However, that also meant it would take more energy for them to grow. Chen estimated that if he spent day and night circulating the primal chaos bead, he would be able to nourish the world trees to their limit in around 10 years. If he didn't intentionally circulate the primal chaos bead, then it would take 1,000 years. However, Chen didn't have even a year to focus on doing this. He couldn't even squeeze out a month. He had no time to focus on nourishing the world trees. However, the white water was able to nourish them, allowing them to rapidly grow. In just a few breaths' time, they reached 15,000 meters. Chen was delighted. There was no way for him to directly absorb this white water, but seeing that the world trees could absorb it, it meant that this white water was a priceless treasure to him. As Chen crazily absorbed the white water, the woman's eyes grew larger, and she covered her mouth. This white water here could not be directly absorbed. She had managed to obtain a special flying boat that could enter the water and collect it. However, its gathering speed was measured in drops. She had already been here for a while and only managed to gather a dozen bottles of it. In truth, offering Chen a bottle just now had been extremely generous of her. "Hey, if you're so amazing, can you get me some too?" asked the woman. "No problem." Chen smiled. In any case, this water didn't belong to him, and this woman wasn't bad. Although she had mocked him before, her offer to give him a bottle of it was a rare show of kindness in the cultivation world. Suddenly, the world rumbled. A sensation of danger filled Chen's heart. The woman's expression also changed. She looked around, terrified. The 9 lakes were all trembling as a terrifying pressure descended. Chen hastily stopped absorbing the water. Once he stopped, the pressure slowly faded. "I've reached the limit? It won't let me take any more?" wondered Chen. He looked at the world trees inside the primal chaos space. They had grown to 24,000 meters. How could this be? "It doesn't let others take too much?" asked the woman. "I don't know either. When I was taking the black water, I ran into the same thing," said Chen. "You even took the death spirit water?" exclaimed the woman. Only now did Chen learn that the black water was called death spirit water. "Didn't you want this black water? Take out a storage device and I'll give you some," said Chen. The white water had rained down on the primal chaos space. It was quickly absorbed by the soil. Now the only bits remaining were some droplets on the leaves of the world trees. Here. The woman hastily gave Chen a translucent bottle. Looking at this bottle, Chen was dumbfounded. It was only the size of a fist. It was so small that he looked at her curiously. "This bottle is made of special material. Other storage devices wouldn't be able to bring this life spirit water out of the Netherworld," she said helplessly. "All right then." Chen took the bottles she gave him into the primal chaos space. Just the droplets on a single leaf were enough to fill them completely. He handed over 100 bottles back to the woman. She immediately smiled brightly. "Thank you. Although you look very fierce and not like a good person, your heart's not bad," thanked the woman as she gently caressed the bottles. "If you removed the first half, I'd feel more moved," said Chen speechlessly. Who asked you to look so fierce? You look like such a bad person. Come have a seat on my flying boat." The woman brought Chen onto the flying boat. Its interior was not bad, but what made Chen curious was that while its exterior was similar to the flying boats of the Martial Heaven continent, its interior was completely different. The shape and designs of the interior were things he had never seen before. The control panel in particular was covered in various characters that he didn't recognize at all. He sat down on a soft chair. There was a tea set in front of him, and the woman sat on the other side of the table, facing him. She was still holding the small bottles with a satisfied smile. This time I have really profited. I spent all my savings to rent this flying boat, but this life spirit water is enough to get a huge return on that investment. It'll be enough for my tuition," laughed the woman. "Your tuition?" asked Chen. "Just don't ask about that. I'm not from the same plane as you, and you wouldn't understand my explanation either way. Fortunately, this flying boat had some special functions, allowing me to communicate with you. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be able to understand what the other was saying. Speaking of which, what kind of ancient place do you come from? Based on what the flying boat says, your language is extremely old. Theoretically, no one in existence should still be using such a language, said the woman curiously. It's hard for me to answer that question. I don't even know how to describe where I live. Even if I said the name, you wouldn't recognize it. I don't even know what a star field is, said Long Chen. Long Chen was sure that he was a frog at the bottom of a well now. The world was far larger than he had imagined. The Martial Heaven continent was just a speck of dust within the cosmos. That's too bad. Once we leave, we'll probably never see each other again. Originally, I was hoping to repay you for this favor once I finished my studies, said the woman sadly. It's fine, I'm not in the habit of forcing people to repay me favors. How fast can this flying boat of yours cross the lakes? Asked Long Chen. Pretty fast. A single lake should only take a dozen breaths, said the woman. A dozen breaths? Long Chen was shocked. It seemed this flying boat really was something good. Do you want to get more life spirit water? Asked Long Chen. Of course I want to, but it can only be taken out with these special bottles. My bottles are already full. As long as you want it, we can cooperate. My guess is that the life spirit water and death spirit water must be balanced to maintain an equilibrium between life and death. Just taking one breaks the equilibrium and touches the rules here. However, if we take both continuously, we should be able to get more. If you're willing to test it, you bring your flying boat and I bring my abilities, and I guarantee your profits will increase by at least 10,000 times. 10,000 times? Are you sure you're not conning me? Asked the woman suspiciously. I do con people often, but I wouldn't con a child like you. Don't worry about it. Alright, I'll trust you. In any case, this doesn't have any drawbacks for me, said the woman, sending the boat back toward the Black Lake. What startled Long Chen was that the flying boat's speed seemed very slow, but it seemed to break through space. They reached the Red Lake in just a moment. Furthermore, even when going through the Blue Lake, the terrifying ice chi was completely blocked by the flying boat. Long Chen sighed inside. The world was truly large. Just this flying boat was incomprehensible to him. If he could let Guoran take a look at this flying boat, he would go crazy. For Long Chen though, he was more interested in this woman. Her cultivation base revealed fluctuations similar to a Yuan spirit but also a bit different. However, the two of them weren't friends, so it wasn't convenient for him to ask her what her origin was. They quickly arrived at the edge of the Black Lake. My flying boat can easily go through the other regions, but the only exception is this Black Lake. My flying boat can't be touched by this death spirit water, said the woman. Long Chen nodded. He took out his black little boat and began to collect the black water again. He also didn't extract too much at once. Instead, he collected it slowly as a test. As expected, his guess was correct. After gathering the life spirit water, he was able to gather more of the death spirit water. With this confidence, he continued gathering more. It wasn't long before the world began to rumble once more. Long Chen immediately stopped. He returned to the white region with the woman's boat and gathered the life spirit water. After 10 trips, Long Chen's world trees had reached their limit. They were a true, towering forest now. As for the black soil, there was now a giant black lake inside it. That was all death spirit water. Long Chen didn't disappoint the woman. He pasted the spatial runes within the primal chaos space onto her special bottles, increasing their interior space. They could now hold tens of thousands of times more life spirit water than before. The woman almost went crazy with joy. After gathering so much life spirit water, she hesitated and then suddenly asked, I know somewhere that will definitely have treasures. Are you interested? If there are treasures, then I'm definitely interested. However, aren't you afraid of me killing you and taking the treasures all for myself when the time comes? Asked Long Chen. At first, this girl had intentionally acted big toward Long Chen. However, later on, her hostility had faded. Although Long Chen wasn't afraid of her, He couldn't go somewhere unknown without making things clear first. Who wouldn't want a free meal? He didn't want to be devoured by this girl. You wouldn't. You have the spiritual mark of the butterfly spirit race on your hand. That means you're a good person and wouldn't kill me. Furthermore, you shouldn't look down on me. I'm not so easy to kill. The woman pointed to the back of Long Chen's hand. If it weren't for the mark of the butterfly spirit race, then do you think I'd work with you considering your fierce face? So that was the case. However, did he really have such a fierce face? Long Chen touched his face. He had never felt himself to look so fierce. He thought his looks actually weren't bad. Don't think you can cover up your heart so easily. You've killed many people and you can't conceal it. Back in the day, I was also a very handsome dragon, but after killing so many creatures, fuck whatever, said the evil moon. Killing too much results in your appearance changing? I don't believe you, said Long Chen. I also didn't believe it, but reality proves it. Those who kill too many people start looking fierce. You've killed so many people from the corrupt path. Don't they all look that way? Said Evil Moon. That couldn't be right. The people they killed were all innocent, and so they accumulated resentment. However, when Long Chen killed people, he always kept his conscience clean. It was definitely because he had been under too much pressure these days. Yes, that had to be why his appearance looked so fierce. Little sister. Long Chen put on a smile and did his best to speak warmly. The woman jumped in shock and hastily retreated. Your smile is so sinister. Can you not smile like that? I'm afraid. Long Chen's smile stiffened, while Evelmoon's heartless laughter rang out in his mind, making him want to slap it. Seeing Long Chen's expression sink, the woman laughed. I'm just teasing you. Who asked you to con me at the start? Now we're even. So he had actually fallen for the teasing of a girl. Long Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After that joke, she became even friendlier with Long Chen. She introduced herself as Xie Qianqian. She came from a region called the All-Devil Star Field. The All-Devil Star Field? Have you heard of the All-Devil race? Asked Long Chen, surprised. You know about the All-Devil race? Asked Xie Qianqian, just as surprised as Long Chen. Long Chen immediately said that he had encountered one of them in a minor world. He described its appearance. That truly is one of the bastards of the All-Devil race. The majority of the All-Devil Star Field has been taken over by them, which is of course where it gets its name. Those despicable bastards slaughtered countless people. Were their enemies and my parents, they were killed by them. Tears dripped down her cheek without her knowing it. Long Chen didn't know how to console her. He could only silently listen. Xie Qianqian wiped away her tears and continued. That happened 3 years ago. My parents died in battle. While they were still alive, all the relatives did their best to curry favor with them, but after they died, they immediately showed me their true selves. They were doing their best to win favor with me in order to get my parents' wealth. I knew what kind of people they were from the start, so I sold off all my parents' assets and left my household. I'm going to become strong and become a grand warrior capable of avenging my parents. That's why I want to study at my Star Field's strongest academy. However, I can't afford their tuition, so I bet everything on renting this special flying boat in hopes of getting a high return when I attacked the life and death realm. Oh, that would be your Nether Passage realm. Long Chen, I really need to thank you. This life spirit water should be enough for my tuition. Even if it's not enough, I should be able to make up the difference through other means. Long Chen nodded. He really had misjudged her. He had thought that this woman had come out to play since she belonged to some powerful family with amazing treasures. Just like he had his own difficulties, she had hers as well. Admirable. Long Chen gave her a thumbs up along with some sincere praise. A confused girl who had come out of nowhere was actually someone who relied only on herself to charge her way forward, betting her life in the Netherworld. Such a person was worthy of respect. Long Chen, I've told you my experiences. Can you tell me yours? Otherwise, I'll have lost out, said the woman. For her to still be able to joke with Long Chen showed that her heart was still full of sunshine. Me? Long Chen was startled and shook his head. I don't have any good stories. I have a father, a mother, and a little sister, all living very well. When I was little, I had a carefree life. When I got older, I had to bear more responsibility, so I was busier. A few friends like to mess around with me, so we scuffle all day. Some hills form, some little streams flow. But I have to say, it's very lively. Long Chen put it very lightly. The mountains of corpses and rivers of blood that flowed from his battles had been turned into tiny scuffles. Xie Qianqian didn't manage to hear that aspect of his words and thought that he really did live happily, making her a bit envious. Qianqian, what is the butterfly spirit race? Asked Long Chen. The butterfly spirit race is a kind race but also a very powerful one. They have immense power, and their illusion arts are especially terrifying. Within the same realm, practically no one can resist them. However, they have a fatal weakness, which is fire. That's why they reside in water spirit worlds, as there's no fire element that can threaten them there. However, this information is just things that I've heard. I've never encountered anyone from the butterfly spirit race. However, I know they're pure-hearted. They practically never mark others, and those they do are all good people. That's why I'm willing to work together with you. You might not even realize that when you circulate your energy, a butterfly mark flashes on your hand. With that advice, Long Chen looked down to see an almost imperceptible mark on his hand. It was a butterfly that was slowly flapping its wings. Hopefully, it didn't stay once he returned. There was no way for him to explain this. Where are those treasures you mentioned? Don't worry, no matter how many there are, I'll split them evenly with you, promised Long Chen. I guarantee there are treasures. When I was collecting the life spirit water, I got curious and went deeper to see where the 9 springs gather. There are countless precious stones there with frightening fluctuations. The suction there is also very powerful, so I didn't dare to go. I'm just wondering if you have any method of handling it, said Xie Qianqian. As long as the treasures are good enough, even if there's no way to obtain them, I have to think of some way to do so. Let's go have a look. Long Chen's eyes began to shine. The whirlpool of the 9 lakes flowed down in a waterfall and then flowed back up. That was where the 9 springs gathered. The only possibilities were that there would be no treasures, or whatever treasures there were had to be stunningly precious. Xie Qianqian controlled the flying boat, having it descend in the White Lake. As it descended, countless runes lit up on the flying boat, blocking the white water. Long Chen's world trees had already grown to their limit, so he didn't need to gather more of it. If he continued gathering it, then based on his experience, it would transform into the divine life elixir. However, he didn't dare to gather more. The final few times he had collected the life spirit water and death spirit water, he hadn't been able to get much at all before the world had started shuddering. That meant that he had already reached a kind of limit. Taking any more would very likely cause trouble. The two of them were descending deeper and deeper. Long Chen estimated that this place might be even deeper than the martial heaven searing. However, despite the immense pressure, the flying boat was fine. It really is worth spending all your savings on renting. This flying boat is a priceless treasure, sighed Long Chen. Xie Qianqian shook her head. In truth, this flying boat isn't that amazing. It's not a fighting flying boat. However, it is made of special nether iron and isn't rejected in the Netherworld, which is what allows it to enter and what makes it so precious. Xie Qianqian was a bit vexed. The flying boat clearly hadn't been as amazing as she had thought when she had rented it. If she hadn't encountered Long Chen, then who knew how long it would have taken her to fill up those bottles of hers. Furthermore, something had happened to her bottles and that had caused the space inside them to shrink. They had lost effect once she had come to the Netherworld. Once she returned, she would definitely have to settle the bill with the person who had rented them to her. Long Chen sighed inside. As expected, the outer world was truly mysterious. Such an amazing flying boat was viewed as rubbish by Xie Qianqian. He truly felt like a frog at the bottom of a well. The flying boat was still descending. A general image appeared in Long Chen's head. The 9 springs formed a circular sea, with the whirlpool at the center and the gates of hell at the bottom. However, despite the gates of hell being located not far from the bottom of the 9 springs, they weren't actually the bottom of the 9 springs. That was completely incomprehensible. Everything was white as they descended. However, after a while, intense fluctuations came from below, and the flying boat began to shake. That's the core of the 9 springs. Xie Qianqian carefully controlled the flying boat as she pointed in a certain direction. Long Chen looked at where Xie Qianqian was pointing and saw a 9-colored whirlpool that had a large black hole in its center. When he saw the red, orange, yellow, green, azure, blue, violet, black, and white colors intertwining, he suddenly felt the 9-star Hegemon body art form an indescribable resonance with it. It began to circulate on its own, and the 5-star battle armor almost activated. Will the 9-star Hegemon body art follow these 9 colors as well? The first 5 stars cause the divine ring to become red, orange, yellow, green, and azure. 9 stars, 9 springs. Is there some kind of connection? But why do I feel like that's not entirely right either? Wondered Long Chen. He felt the 9-star Hegemon body art react to the gathering of the 9 springs, but there also seemed to be something different about them. One was a dragon, one was a snake. They looked similar but were completely different species. This feeling was indescribable. To sum up, this feeling was simply very strange. Long Chen, do you have any way to get those crystals on the ground? Seeing that Long Chen was staring blankly, Xie Qianqian thought he was stunned by the sight, so she pulled his attention to the treasures. Only then did Long Chen recover. Now, they were even closer to the whirlpool, and the flying boat was constantly shaking. There was a huge twister where the 9 streams gathered. It was roaring like a dragon. If someone were to be sucked into that twister, they would probably be instantly torn to pieces. However, not far from there was a plot of land that had been eroded for countless years. Many crisscrossing and deep ditches were present on it. The deep ditches revealed large crystals at the bottom. Each of them was several meters long, and they came in different colors. The flying boat is unable to get any closer. Otherwise, we might get sucked into the core, said Xie Qianqian. This was the limit. However, even at this distance, the closest white-colored crystal was several miles away. Her flying boat was not a combat flying boat. Its projectile range was limited. She could only look at those crystals but not obtain them. Long Chen sank into thought. He waved his hand, and a flying hook appeared with a long chain at the end. This was a corrupt weapon. He didn't even remember its usage. Just now, he had randomly seen it while flipping through the primal chaos space. He threw it out. Its chain was very long and flexible. It quickly reached the first crystal. However, that was when a problem occurred. The suction force was too great, and it caused the hook to be drawn over. There was no way for it to land on the crystal. Xie Qianqian was watching anxiously. If Long Chen could succeed, they would make a terrifying profit. Long Chen snorted and swung his arm. The claw whipped away from the hurricane and wrapped around a portion of the exposed crystal like a python. Long Chen pulled, and the crystal was slowly torn out of the ground. In the end, Long Chen managed to obtain it. When the white crystal landed on the flying boat, Xie Qianqian let out a cheer. This should be a life spirit crystal. There's immense life energy inside. If placed in water, it would create a pool of life spirit water in just a few years. Long Chen nodded. This life energy could be useful to him, but not that useful. He couldn't wait for years. Let's put it away for now and get some more. We'll split them in the end, said Long Chen. All right. Xie Qianqian was incredibly excited. She hadn't expected Long Chen to have this much ability. He was actually able to bring so many things from the outside world into the Netherworld. This time, the crystal Long Chen pulled over was a blood-red one. It was a bit demonic and looked like there was blood flowing inside it. However, with the crystalline exterior, it was impossible to sense the fluctuations on the inside. Let me appraise it. Xie Qianqian placed it on a strange device of her flying boat. Dozens of tentacles stuck onto the crystal, and various runes revolved around it. Characters that Long Chen couldn't understand appeared on the control panel. This is a Blood Soul Stone. A normal Blood Soul Stone will be considered top grade if it reaches a soul energy level of 8,000 points. However, this one has reached 3 million soul energy points. Heavens, how shocking! Xie Qianqian was completely stunned by its energy readings. Is it useful? Asked Long Chen. This Blood Soul Stone is one of the products of my All-Devil star field. The ancient battlefields between the human race and the All-Devil race result in two kinds of crystals. The All-Devil race's blood essence and souls are very powerful, and once they're killed, their corpses will gradually condense these kinds of crystals after tens of thousands of years. Those crystals are split into two kinds, blood essence stones and soul stones. Both crystals are priceless treasures that can upgrade the power of a person's physical body or soul. My guess is this blood soul stone is the result of those monsters on the bridges from when you first enter the Netherworld. They're gathering all that energy to condense these stones, said Xie Qianqian. Yes, I saw them too. Now that you say that, why is it that we would all advance together here if we aren't on the same planes? Asked Long Chen. This was something he had been very curious about, and now he was reminded of it. I'm not sure. According to ancient records, this world is not a complete world, and the laws are chaotic. According to reason, each region should be operating according to its own functions. However, I saw all kinds of life forms I've never seen before upon coming here. I don't know why either, said Xie Qianqian. She continued, all right then, don't interrupt again or I'll lose my train of thought. That monster you just mentioned, it kills those roaming souls and the experts who attack them, inserting their blood and souls into the orbs on the bridge. Through my own observation, I found that the energy they're absorbing slowly fades away, and there's no way to tell where it's going. However, based on this blood soul stone, I've started to form a hypothesis. According to reason, even in the life and death realm, that is the nether passage realm, people do not have such powerful souls. There must be some kind of law present that is further purifying their essence to condense these blood soul stones. If a cultivator were to absorb such a thing, they would be able to upgrade their Yuan spirit a second time. It could be said that they are heaven-defying treasures. Unfortunately, the All-Devil star field's human race doesn't specialize in physical strength or spiritual strength. Otherwise, we'd have long since defeated the despicable All-Devil race. If you don't have talent in regards to the physical body or the spiritual body, how do you fight back at all? Asked Long Chen. Naturally, it's with our wits. We've created many powerful weapons, flying boats, sets of armor, warships, and other treasures that can increase our power by hundreds or thousands of times. With defensive structures and the skills of our craftsmen, we can use various natural resources to create divine items. Regretfully, here, Xie Qianqian's expression became angry and distressed. Regretfully, while it's possible to defend against the frightening All-Devil race, it's the enemies that lie beside us that we can't defend against. Or perhaps it's more accurate to say it's impossible to defend against their greed. In the past few centuries, we've been constantly losing to the All-Devil race, not because we aren't strong enough, but because our commanders are all a bunch of useless pieces of garbage. They are all geniuses, but they only go to the battlefield to dredge up profits for themselves. In truth, their abilities are inferior to even Dog's Hit. If they were just Dog's Hit, then that would be something, but despite being amateurs, they have to act like experts. Most hateful of all, they're supported by powerful idiots who clearly know the battle plan is wrong, but instead of punishing them, they blame the fighters. My parents died because of them. That's why I chose to attend the best academy. I'm not only going to kill the All-Devil race's monsters, but I'll also be cleaning up our human race's degenerates. I wish you luck. In the end, all Long Chen could say was such a thing. He didn't have high hopes for her. Based on what she said, the All-Devil Starfield's human race was also a group of greedy degenerates. A force that was rotten to that extent couldn't be saved. It was no different from the Martial Heaven continent. Long Chen had never even had a thought to try and draw everyone into the righteous path, nor had he ever thought about erasing the greed and wickedness in the hearts of the righteous path. That was because he was well aware of his own capabilities, and such a task was impossible for him. Let alone him, it was impossible even for a god. If gods really could do such a thing, then everyone's faiths would be united. However, because there were so many differences of opinion, there were just as many different faiths. If such a thing was possible, these faiths wouldn't be contradictory and ignite conflict after a battle. Or perhaps this was just the Tao. The merciless and cruel Tao. Long Chen continued grabbing the crystals. He obtained 7 of the life spirit crystals and 9 of the blood-colored crystals. Through Xia Qianqian's appraisal, she determined that of those 9 blood-colored crystals, 3 were blood essence stones and 3 were blood soul stones. Xia Qianqian didn't need those, because the All-Devil Star Field already had them. In fact, they had so many that they had to come up with ways to sell them to other star fields. Other than needing to get through the layers of blockades of the All-Devil race, they also had to pay a high transportation fee. Their profits weren't very high. As a result, the blood-colored crystals went to Long Chen, while the life spirit crystals went to Xia Qianqian. However, Xia Qianqian didn't have anywhere to store them. She had no choice but to pour out the life spirit water in her bottles and put the life spirit crystals inside. That aggrieved her, but there was nothing she could do. On the other hand, Long Chen simply sucked them into the primal chaos space. The surrounding crystals were quickly pulled out. There were more ahead, but they were too close to the core, making the two of them not dare to approach. They began to slowly roam the outer regions, looking to get some more crystals. However, the hurricane at the core rapidly expanded. It came without any warning at all. Run! Long Chen's expression changed, and he hastily pushed Xia Qianqian to send the flying boat running. However, the flying boat had just started moving when a terrifying suction force came over them. The flying boat began to fly toward the hurricane out of their control. Not good. Put away the flying boat, shouted Long Chen. The flying boat was too large. If they put it away, perhaps they might have some hope of escaping. Xia Qianqian was panicking, and she hastily slammed a button on the flying boat's control panel. The flying boat instantly transformed into a ray of light that entered Xia Qianqian's head. The image of a flying boat appeared on her forehead. Once the flying boat vanished, they instantly felt a terrifying suction force. They began to fly into the twister in the sky. "Grab hold of me," shouted Long Chen. Evil Moon appeared in his hand. As it was heavier than a mountain, the two of them immediately dropped to the ground. Long Chen stabbed Evil Moon into the hard rock all the way to the hilt. He just barely managed to stabilize himself. Xia Qianqian held on tightly to Long Chen's waist, but her body was already being pulled into the air. That suction force was too terrifying. "Hold on tightly. I can bring you out," called out Long Chen. At this moment, it was like he was on the edge of a rapid waterfall. The pulling force behind him was too great. Just standing there was very difficult. Relying on Evelmun's weight, he forcibly took a step forward. However, the ground was too flat and smooth. There was nowhere for him to get leverage. "Hold on." Long Chen took a deep breath. He suddenly pulled Evil Moon out and stabbed it back into the ground as quick as lightning. This fierce movement only gained him half a foot of distance. However, that didn't discourage him. In fact, this was a good sign. As long as he could move away, the further he got from the whirlpool, the weaker its pull would be. Long Chen, "I can't hold on any longer." Xia Qianqian was holding on to Long Chen as best as she could. However, her arm strength was limited. "Ah!" Xia Qianqian let out a frightened cry as she lost power in her arms and was sucked away by the whirlpool. Long Chen suddenly extracted Evil Moon and followed the suction force as well. Then he grabbed Xia Qianqian's arm before stabbing Evil Moon into the ground again. Xia Qianqian was saved, but now they were hundreds of meters closer to the twister. The pull was even stronger. Furthermore, he was now holding on to Xia Qianqian with one hand. He couldn't use the same method he had before. The thing that made his heart grow cold was that he actually couldn't think of anything. He could only keep this position. However, if this continued, he would run out of energy sooner or later. Then they would be sucked into the twister and torn apart. "Long Chen, throw her away and you'll have a chance to get out." "She's just a burden," said Evil Moon. Long Chen ignored Evil Moon and looked all around. His brain was working rapidly to find some way to get out. He also knew that as long as he let go, Then without the burden of an extra person, he would have a high chance of being able to get away. However, while he was no gentleman, he definitely wasn't someone who would abandon his companion in the face of danger. "Fool, do you want to die with her?" raged Evil Moon. Long Chen continued to ignore it. He kicked the ground, trying to make a foothold for himself, but the ground was both tough and slippery. His kicks only caused his foot to hurt. "Long Chen, let me go. Perhaps you'll be able to escape on your own," said Xie Qianqian softly as she watched Long Chen struggle. She knew that neither of them would be able to escape like this. She knew this, and she knew Long Chen knew it as well. "I'm grateful you didn't abandon me, but it's your only choice," said Xie Qianqian helplessly. Long Chen shook his head. "There's always a way. Don't panic. It's useless. If you wait any longer, you'll use up too much energy and won't be able to even save yourself. Thank you. I'm happy to have met you before dying." Light suddenly shone from Xie Qianqian's arm. Long Chen was startled as Xie Qianqian actually slid from his hold. That energy was strange. It was not physical or spiritual energy, but it made it so he couldn't grab hold of her arm. "Are you joking? I've never abandoned a companion. Let's have a look at what's inside the whirlpool." Long Chen suddenly pulled Evil Moon out of the ground. The two of them began flying toward the whirlpool. "Are you crazy?" Two voices rang out at the same time. One was Xie Qianqian's, while the other was Evil Moon's that rang out in his mind. Xie Qianqian's voice was full of shock, while Evil Moon's voice was full of rage. Long Chen held onto Xie Qianqian's waist and didn't reply. With Evil Moon in his right hand, he stared closely at the nine-colored twister. Long Chen's thoughts were definitely not calm at this time. He didn't even know what he was thinking. It wasn't as if he had a relationship with Xie Qianqian. Why did he have to be so stupid as to throw himself into danger? It had just been a kind of instinct. He didn't know if it was because of his own sense of duty or because of the arrogance of the Pill Sovereign, but he couldn't abandon anyone. Even Long Chen didn't know why he would occasionally do such foolish things. Xie Qianqian silently cried as she was held by Long Chen. Ever since her parents had died, no one had ever treated her well, but Long Chen was actually sacrificing his life to accompany her. "Don't be so emotional yet. There's still a long way to go before we die. Hold onto my back and hold on tight. I'm going to fight," said Long Chen. Xie Qianqian tightly held onto Long Chen. Her arms were around his neck, and even her legs were wrapped around his waist. As extra precaution, Long Chen pulled out some rope and bound her to him. That way, he didn't need to worry about her falling off. They were getting closer and closer to the twister. Its pull was so powerful that Xie Qianqian felt like she was being crushed. The majority of the pressure was being endured by Long Chen, but she was already in such a state. She clenched her teeth and forced herself to be silent, afraid that the slightest disturbance would affect him. Long Chen's divine ring appeared. The red, orange, yellow, green, and azure streams of water shook for an instant, but they quickly returned to normal. Having summoned the divine ring, Long Chen felt the pressure weaken. However, that pressure quickly grew back as they approached the twister. Long Chen's 30,000-meter divine ring seemed to be squeezed by some kind of force and was constantly shrinking. This was a scenario he had never encountered before. He understood too little about the divine ring. However, as it was compressed, its power grew greater, shocking him. Was this another possible state of the divine ring? Boom. Long Chen was finally sucked into the twister, the core of the whirlpool. He felt like the whole world was squeezing him. Xie Qianqian immediately coughed up blood. She was unable to bear the pressure. Feng Fu Star. Alioth Star. Life Fate Star. Enlightenment Palace Star. Long Chen activated 4 stars at once, forcing back the pressure. This was the core of the 9-colored whirlpool. Here, he saw that the water of the 9 lakes was actually not water. It was composed of countless runes. There were 9 types of energy clashing here, forming a pressure that could crush mountains instantly. Xie Qianqian coughed up blood once more. She was at her limit. Although Long Chen was forcing back the pressure and activating the first 4 stars had won her some breathing room, she eventually fainted. Her physical body is too weak. Long Chen couldn't help shaking his head. He had to focus on resisting the whirlpool. Now that he was sucked within it, he found that he was sinking. It seemed that there was an exit at the bottom. However, the pressure only grew as he sank deeper. Long Chen couldn't resist the pull. He could only slowly sink. As the pressure grew, the divine ring continued to shrink. He paid close attention to its changes because he found that it was growing stronger. Even the power of the 4 stars had changed in an indescribable way. Perhaps I should consider how to compress the divine ring in the future to unleash more power, thought Long Chen. When the divine ring was just 300 meters wide, Xie Qianqian's labored breathing rang out from behind him. The pressure was unendurable. Divine Gate Star. Long Chen's 5th star activated, and the divine ring was restored to its 30,000-meter size. The 5th star was his limit. However, the pressure was still growing greater. He could see the bottom of the whirlpool. It was a mass of darkness, like the gaping maw of a monster waiting for its prey. The divine ring once more compressed from the immense pressure. As for Xie Qianqian, crackling sounds rang out from her bones. Evil Moon, stop acting dead and help, shouted Long Chen. Fuck off. Just wait for death. No one will help you, was Evil Moon's cold reply. Stop being in such a bad mood and help. These are my principles. When you're in trouble in the future, I'll also risk my life to save you, shouted Long Chen. Scram. Your sappiness is sickening. If you were about to die, I definitely wouldn't save you, cursed Evil Moon. Although it cursed at Long Chen, black light flowed out of it and wrapped around Long Chen and Xie Qianqian. Little Brick, come out, too. Your second-rate master decided to throw away his life to pick up a girl. Hurry up and help, called out Evil Moon. The heaven-flipping seal flew out as well. It was just about to grow in size when Evil Moon stopped it. Fool, if you unleash your divine power, you'll be killed by the laws of this place, cursed Evil Moon. Can you not be so mean to the heaven-flipping seal? Demanded Long Chen. The heaven-flipping seal was a very obedient child and did whatever Evil Moon told it to do. However, Evil Moon went too far with its bullying. Long Chen had to support the little fellow. Evil Moon and the heaven-flipping seal revolved around Long Chen's body. The heaven-flipping seal's cyan light mixed with Evil Moon's black light, forming a protective barrier. Keep your power well distributed. Don't go directly against the surrounding laws. Long Chen, don't slack. We all have to work together. Evil Moon began to hand out directions. The deeper they sank, the narrower the whirlpool. By the time they were at the bottom, it was a funnel. Long Chen's expression also paled here. The 5-star battle armor was reaching its limit as well. However, he had to maintain it. Without it, perhaps he would be able to survive, but Xie Qianqian's body would instantly be torn apart. Just as he was at his limit, they reached the bottom. They fell into endless darkness. I'm exhausted. You fool, that energy from the gourd last time was all wasted because of you. Long Chen, tell me, are you a pig? Cursed Evil Moon. It really couldn't understand why Long Chen would be so foolish as to almost throw his own life away to save someone he barely knew. Furthermore, the heaven-flipping seal wasn't skilled enough to cooperate with Evil Moon very well, meaning it had paid 80% of its energy to protect them. Its delight at having conned so much energy from the blood gourd of the corrupt path changed into fury at having lost it all. Long Chen knew that his actions were the peak of foolishness in Evil Moon's eyes. However, in the end, Evil Moon had still helped him out, so Long Chen didn't talk back. It would be fine after it vented. He returned Evil Moon and the heaven-flipping seal to the primal chaos space. Everything around him was pitch black, and he could feel himself slowly descending within the darkness. It was a similar feeling to when he had first come to the Netherworld. After an unknown amount of time, he felt himself touch solid ground. He opened his eyes and activated his 6th sense. Through his 6th sense, he managed to see his surroundings. It was a ruined palace. He didn't know if it was because he was too small, but he felt like an ant in a giant's lair. Based on his estimate, this palace was dozens of kilometers high and hundreds of kilometers wide. The place he had landed was on two open hands. The owner of those hands was a giant statue. The statue wasn't standing but kneeling on the ground. Its hands were outstretched before it, as if it was begging for charity. Chen calmly sat on the two hands and slowly recovered his energy. Using the 5-star battle armor was extremely taxing on him. As he calmly recovered, he examined Xie Qianqian's injuries. She had lost a grave amount of essence blood. However, when he used spiritual strength to examine her mind sea, he was comforted to find that although her energy was strange to him, she was able to absorb his spiritual strength to aid in her recovery. Just as Chen was helping Xie Qianqian recover, an angry roar came from the distance, causing him to jump. He saw the palace gates open. A dozen figures entered while dragging a large body. Those figures weren't large. In fact, they were even smaller than Chen. They seemed to be dwarves. They each had a hawk's nose and a monkey's face, as well as black hair on their backs. Other than that, they were no different from humans. They held strange blades in their hands. They were 3-foot-long triangular blades. Although they were extremely far, Chen could sense that those strange blades were very terrifying. The dwarfs were pulling a magical beast. The magical beast was 300 meters long and had barbs all over its body. It looked to be an alligator, but it had fur. It was roaring miserably. Chen hid himself and looked around carefully. He saw that the dwarfs were also holding chains that were stabbed through the magical beast's body. Creepy laughter came from them, and it gave him a chill. Based on their appearance, they seemed very happy. The dwarves pulled the magical beast directly in front of the statue, causing Chen to jump. If they came over, he would instantly be exposed. However, the dwarves stopped right before the statue. The ground beneath them began to sink. There was actually a hidden mechanism present. The original ground sank and an altar rose. The magical beast was chained to the altar by the dwarfs. What are they doing? Is it a sacrifice? Chen was curious. The magical beast was constantly roaring, but it was of no use. Despite clearly looking stronger than the dwarves, it could only be manipulated by them. Just as Chen was watching them, Xie Qianqian let out a moan as she woke. Chen immediately covered her mouth with his hand. Xie Qianqian was startled awake. She realized that she was in Chen's embrace, his hand on his mouth and his scent in her nose. She turned red. Chen didn't notice that as he was staring closely at the dwarves. He had yet to fully recover, and he had no confidence in winning against them if they noticed him. He sensed great danger from them. Although Xie Qianqian's voice was cut short by Chen and hadn't been very loud, it had still drawn their attention. The dwarves began looking in every direction. At this moment, the magical beast that they had bound to the altar let out another roar. The dwarves focused on it again. Chen wiped off some sweat. Xie Qianqian had really woken at the worst time. The magical beast had been briefly silent at that moment, otherwise, she wouldn't have even drawn their attention. Chen suddenly felt his hand itch. Xie Qianqian was scratching his hand, indicating that he could let go. Only then did Chen release her. Xie Qianqian looked out through the gap between the statue's fingers. Skinners! Xie Qianqian turned pale. She transmitted a message to Chen spiritually. Chen could sense her terror. We might have. Just at this moment, the Skinners began to wield their blades. They slowly stabbed the beast's stomach. It seemed they were about to skin it. The magical beast roared as if it was in incredible pain. However, its roars only made the dwarves laugh, as if its tormented cries were their greatest delight. We might have what? Asked Chen. He had a bad premonition. We might have arrived in Purgatory. This might be the Skinner Purgatory. Xie Qianqian's face was as pale as paper. Chen was stunned. How could that be possible? How could a good person like him end up in Purgatory? In our myths, there are certain sayings about Purgatory. I was curious, so I read up on those stories. There was a picture in one of those stories that looks just like these dwarves. They're called Skinners. They are jailers of the first level of Purgatory. Their chains and skinning blades are all terrifying magical weapons. Once they stab the body, they cause indescribable pain. Their skinning doesn't just skin the body, it skins the soul as well. Have you noticed? That magical beast doesn't seem to be composed of the same substance as us. Long Chen nodded. This magical beast truly didn't seem to be in the same form as them. As its body was skinned, its blood poured out, and they could see its innards. Rumor is that once the skinners capture the spiritual body in the Netherworld, they even pull in the physical body from the other world, said Xia Qianqian. Her entire body was quivering in terror. Death sometimes wasn't so terrifying. However, rumor was that once a person entered Purgatory, they wouldn't die again. Instead, they would suffer endless pain. That was the real terror. Fuck, this is definitely my bad luck acting up again. It really was vicious this time. It even brought me for a stroll through Purgatory, cursed Long Chen. Those dwarves were skillfully cutting off the magical beast's skin. Each time they made a cut, the magical beast would let out a hair-raising cry. It was clearly in immense pain. The dwarves' blades worked rapidly as they laughed sinisterly. Their movements weren't sloppy in the least. It wasn't long before all the magical beast's skin was stripped off. The dwarves pulled the pelt and examined it for something. They were speaking amongst themselves, seeming to be discussing something. They quickly left along with the pelt, leaving only a bloody magical beast behind that was still crying miserably. Once the dwarves were gone, Xia Qianqian quietly said, "The reason they aren't killing it is because they're waiting for it to grow back its skin so they can skin it again." Long Chen's heart shook. This was too vicious. Just skinning it once wasn't enough? They would skin it for eternity? If the life forms in Purgatory were unable to die, then that magical beast's fate was truly miserable. According to the myths, the place we're in should be the first of the 18 levels of Purgatory, the Skinner Purgatory, said Xia Qianqian. Her voice quivered. That magical beast's current state was about to be their future. The Skinner Purgatory? I've never heard of such a thing in my world, said Long Chen. He had heard that there were 18 levels to hell, but that was all. Who knows why? However, based on what we've seen, I'm almost 100% sure that we're in the first level of Purgatory, said Xia Qianqian. Then good thing it's not the 18th level. We still have a chance to get out. That's impossible. Once past the gates to Purgatory, it's impossible to leave. Xia Qianqian couldn't help but cry. She was afraid. It was impossible to not be afraid in Purgatory. Thinking of the pain they would suffer if the Skinners found them, she felt faint. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Everything in this world has a weakness or flaw. Even the best cage has to have a hole. There is nothing perfect in this world, so as long as we don't give up, there should be a chance to escape, comforted Long Chen. I'm sorry, Long Chen. If I didn't suggest looking for treasures, you wouldn't have been implicated. You even had a chance to escape, but the two of them were just cooperating. There really had been no need for him to take the risk, but he had been willing to throw himself in here for her. Other than feeling emotionally moved, she felt terrible for bringing this upon him. You didn't implicate me. Those blood essence stones and blood soul stones are very useful to me. That's why there's the expression that man will die for riches. My Tao is called see a treasure and can't walk away. I'm used to it, laughed Long Chen. He had long since grown used to his bad luck. If he wanted to gain something, he had to risk his life. Even at this time, you can still laugh. Xia Qianqian wiped away her tears. Even at this time, Long Chen was still relaxed. That did comfort her a bit. His smile gave her the slightest shred of hope. Let's just slowly recover. Once we've pretty much recovered, we'll look around to see just how deep Purgatory is. Long Chen and Xia Qianqian slowly recovered on the statue's hands. Eventually, they felt they had recovered as much as they were going to. They felt like their recovery speed had increased here, but it was also difficult to sense the flow of time. The two of them had barely recovered when they heard a miserable cry. Long Chen looked out to see that those dwarves had appeared once more. The magical beast had also recovered and grown its skin out again. Its miserable cries were because the skinners had begun their work again, skinning it. Long Chen felt a chill. No wonder it was said that people shouldn't do bad things while alive. This skinning torture was absolutely terrifying. Once they fell into Purgatory, they would have to suffer endless pain for eternity. With his energy mostly recovered, Chen sensed that magical beast's aura clearer. It was at the level of an expert attacking the Nether Passage realm. However, such a powerful existence couldn't resist at all in the hands of these dwarves. In the end, its newly grown skin was stripped away, and the dwarves left once more. Once they left, Chen and Chen jumped off the statue's hands and approached the chained magical beast. Chen reached out and grabbed one of the chains. He instantly felt like his body had been thrown into ice. It felt like even his soul was about to freeze. Damn, it's just as strong as the Blue Lake's ice chi. But why does this magical beast not seem to react to it? Wondered Chen. Let's go, urged Chen. I don't want to let something good get away. One of the chains was forcibly torn off by Chen. Despite how strong they were, they couldn't stand up to Evil Moon. You're mad. They're going to notice, exclaimed Chen. Don't worry, I'll just sneak away too. These chains are very strange and I want them. After tearing off 2 chains, the blood-covered magical beast that had been on its last breaths suddenly let out a furious roar. What a strong, baleful aura. Just how many lives did it slaughter? Chen could now sense the endless baleful aura coming from it. That wasn't its own energy, but the result of all the resentment of the life forms that had been unwillingly slain by it. Brother, go ahead and cry. We're leaving. Chen ignored the magical beast. Neither the magical beast nor the Skinners were good existences. He had no urge to save it. He pulled Chen out of the palace. Once they were out of the gates, they saw a long promenade. The ground and walls were pitch black and filled with an aura of death. Chen spread his divine sense and found that there were countless hallways that intersected. It was like a labyrinth. Even when he spread his divine sense dozens of miles out, he couldn't cover the entire labyrinth. You lead the way, said Chen helplessly. Me? Yes. My luck's very bad. If you had me lead the way, the exit would probably be on the last possible route. The only possibility in this maze was to walk around blindly. They would have to draw a map as they went. Once the map was finished, they would be able to find the exit. Chen was so confident in his bad luck that he knew that if he didn't finish drawing the entire map, it would be impossible to chance upon the exit. All right. Chen nodded and started to lead the way. The two of them were both going carefully. They saw this maze had countless palaces. Some of them were empty, and some larger ones had various life forms bound within it. They were strange life forms that Chen had never seen before. Wait! Chen suddenly grabbed Chen. He scratched Evil Moon on the wall and rubbed the resulting dust onto his face and body, covering himself with the aura of death. Smart! Chen followed along, covering herself in the dust. They might not have been sensed in the palace by those Skinners, but they had been rather far away. There was no way to tell at what distance they would be able to sense their aura or spiritual fluctuations. The two of them continued, with Chen leading the way and Chen recording the path they had taken. He told Chen to follow the right wall and not to skip any corners. That way, they would be able to finish the map faster. As they were walking, one of the nearby palace gates opened, and Chen immediately pulled Chen into a dark corner. Another group of Skinners walked past them. At this close a distance, they realized that the Skinners were even smaller than they had thought. They only reached Chen's waist in height. However, they each held a frightening chain and a sharp blade. Chen felt like her heart was about to leap out of her chest being this close to them. Chen was also on high alert as they passed by, ready to attack if they sensed anything. Fortunately, they were excitedly talking to each other and didn't notice that there were 2 people hidden in the dark. Chen sighed with relief. Once those Skinners passed, they continued. They encountered several more groups, but due to Chen's strong spiritual perception, they managed to avoid them at every turn. Eventually, they saw a giant pillar ahead of them. Countless runes were flickering like stars within it. It emitted a great pressure that caused the world to quiver. That's probably the exit, said Chen. He could see a winding staircase going up the pillar. The pillar was 50,000 meters wide and had a winding staircase around it. However, it was so tall that it was impossible to see its end. One could see a path going down it as well. "This is probably the path up and down," exclaimed Long Chen. There were several 30-meter statues around the pillar. They had short legs and thick arms. They were incredibly lifelike, with each vein on their bulging muscles visible. "It's very likely. But when we get there, we'll be instantly noticed." "That place is too empty," said Xie Qianqian worriedly. Several skinners were roving around this region. They would definitely notice them. Long Chen sank into thought and then shook his head. "We'll have to gamble. When intelligence cannot solve a problem, you can only rely on power." Long Chen slowly took out Evil Moon, a sharp light appearing in his eyes. He was like a stalking cheetah in the dark. "Shouldn't we prepare more?" asked Xie Qianqian. This was too dangerous. If they didn't succeed, they wouldn't get another chance. "No need. I've checked the map, and this place should be the core region. Even if we waited longer, we wouldn't be able to increase our odds. I also can't stay too long in this place. But don't worry, I promise that as long as I manage to survive, you will too." Xie Qianqian couldn't help feeling comfort at the sight of Long Chen's firm expression. She actually believed he was speaking the truth. His confident appearance inspired confidence in others. Xie Qianqian nodded and took a deep breath. Just like that, the two of them began rushing toward the giant pillar. The surrounding skinners were all startled. They let out strange cries and attacked. "Don't worry. Just stay beside me." Long Chen's steps didn't pause as he pulled Xie Qianqian's hand. Quick as lightning, he went past the first skinner, slashing it. The skinner instantly exploded. However, the blood mist it had exploded into slowly recondensed into its original form. Rumor is that skinners are the jailers of this level of Purgatory. As long as the skinner Purgatory isn't destroyed, they will forever revive, called out Xie Qianqian. Two more skinners came from the sides, as well as the original skinner that had just reformed. Holding a chain in one hand and a triangular blade in the other, they attacked. Revive forever? What's so amazing about that? Long Chen unleashed a huge saber image that crushed the three skinners. They weren't particularly powerful, and their bodies were very weak. Their only strong points were their chains and blades. This time, as soon as he killed them, he waved his hand and sucked their chains and blades into the primal chaos space. "I'm confiscating your cheat tools." After killing them and taking their weapons, Long Chen rushed off with Xie Qianqian. As for the three skinners he had slain, once they reformed, they didn't attack again. Instead, they began to grope around as if they were looking for their lost tools. "Excellent! Without their chains or blades, they're crippled," cried out Xie Qianqian excitedly. Long Chen smiled faintly and didn't reply. Based on his experience, things definitely wouldn't go this simply. Long Chen killed all the skinners that blocked his path and quickly took their weapons. However, his fighting caused a disturbance that caused countless skinners to come from every direction. They appeared to number in the tens of thousands. Xie Qianqian's face instantly turned pale as there were so many. If any of their blades or chains stabbed through Long Chen, the two of them would be doomed. Those weapons carried the laws of this place. Once stabbed, they would become prey that the skinners would torture for eternity. Whirlwind slash. Long Chen suddenly grabbed Xie Qianqian by the waist and leaped into the air. A black saber image devoured the surrounding skinners. The sound of their bodies exploding rang out one by one. Long Chen was too fast and only had time to take some of their weapons as he rushed off. With just his own saber raining down attacks, he barged his way through them. Xie Qianqian was feeling more and more hopeful as they got closer to the pillar. Long Chen was much stronger than she had expected. Just as they were getting close to it, the land shook. The statues around it began to move. Those statues had manacles on their wrists. As soon as Long Chen approached them, one of them smashed both its fists at him. The immense power gave Long Chen a suffocating feeling. This was his first time encountering such power. He instinctively dodged. The statue's fists smashed into the ground. The entire palace swayed with a rumbling sound. Although the attack missed, the shockwaves sent Long Chen flying. Fortunately, The Skinners were blown to bits by the shockwaves. "That's a loather," cried out Xie Qian. "What are loathers?" asked Long Chen. "I don't know either. The stories just say that loathers are the warriors of a giant race. They are incredibly powerful. It said that they hate that heaven and earth have no handle. That's because they're so powerful that they have no suitable weapons, so they wish they could use heaven and earth as their weapons." Xie Qian cried out as she flew through the air. That wasn't from being blown away, but because Long Chen had tossed her. Xie Qian landed on the staircase of the pillar. She was many meters high now, while the loathers and Skinners were all focused on Long Chen. They completely ignored her. Hating heaven and earth for not having a handle? What arrogant words. I'm impressed by that bragging. Let's see just how strong you really are. Boom. Long Chen's saber slashed onto a loather's wrist. The loathers all had chained manacles on their wrists. Long Chen's attack didn't injure it at all. Instead, he himself was blown back. Now his battle intent was truly ignited. Divine Ring. A 5-colored divine ring appeared, a 5-point star within it. A hallowed aura surged out, even forcing back the air of Purgatory. Feng Fu Star. Alioth Star. Life Fate Star. Evil Moon slashed out mercilessly at one of the loathers. Their attacks clashed, and they were even. Enlightenment Palace Star. Boom. Their stalemate was instantly broken, and the loather was forced back. However, Long Chen was shocked. These loathers were truly powerful. They were relying purely on the power of their physical bodies. Right after he forced back one, another 4 loathers immediately charged at him. Divine Gate Star. A pillar of light soared into the sky, lighting up this world. Split the Heavens 6. A huge saber image swept through all the loathers, slaying them. After killing them, Long Chen ran for the pillar. That attack had contained his full power and had slain all the surrounding loathers and Skinners. However, that was useless. This was Purgatory, while they were the overseers. They would revive over and over again. Taking advantage of while they had yet to reform, Long Chen sped up the staircase. He quickly caught up to Xie Qian and began to pull her along. They two of them rushed up like a wild gale. Their power really wasn't fake. Long Chen had only managed to settle them by using the 5-star battle armor and the 6th form of Split the Heavens. However, while he still had enough energy to unleash this attack one more time, they would just keep reviving. The loathers let out a furious roar and began to bound up the staircase. They were like nimble monkeys, and they were even faster than Long Chen. "Here, get on my back. I'm going to use my full speed." Long Chen put Xie Qian on his back. Thunder force circulated around him as he sped up, looking like a bolt of lightning. Their immense speed caused a powerful tearing force that made Xie Qian feel like her body would explode. However, she knew this was a critical moment. She gritted her teeth and endured it. We made it." Long Chen suddenly laughed as he saw the top. There was black light there. Without hesitation, he charged into it. When Long Chen vanished into the black light, the loathers let out a furious roar, but they didn't dare to follow him there. When Long Chen charged into that black light, he immediately felt like he had landed in glue-like water. He found himself unable to move. This strange water was binding him, and he couldn't shake it off. Long Chen's heart immediately sank. Was he about to be trapped in here for eternity? "Let me." Xie Qian suddenly opened her eyes. A white rune appeared on her forehead, and it transformed into a bright crescent moon that dispersed the sticky water. The light from Xie Qian enveloped the two of them, forcing the water away. The two of them began to float up in a bubble. "At least I showed some value in the end," said Xie Qian with a smile. Ever since encountering Long Chen, she had felt herself to be useless. She had even brought him down, but now she was able to help him resolve a predicament. That gratified her. This water possesses a strange energy that exists between the corporeal and incorporeal, a cross between reality and illusion. That's why no matter how strong you are, you can't do anything to it. It just so happens that the mental energy I cultivate is also between the corporeal and incorporeal, allowing me to block it, explained Xie Qianqian. So that's what it was. The world really is large. I'm just a frog at the bottom of a well, sighed Long Chen. He truly knew little about the greater world. What are you talking about? You're the bravest, strongest warrior I've ever seen. If you can come to my all-devil star field, then once I finish my studies, I'll definitely create a set of battle armor that will increase your power by 100 times. You'll be undefeatable, said Xie Qianqian excitedly. In the all-devil star field, the human warriors weren't very powerful. They relied on their tactics and inventions, creating powerful sets of armor to fight against the all-devil race. 100 times increase? Long Chen jumped in shock. Actually, 100 times would just be a base number. If the armor perfectly suits your bloodline power, you'll be able to unleash even greater power. Unfortunately, I don't even know what place you're from, and I won't be able to find you once we leave, said Xie Qianqian sadly. Don't be sad. I had no idea the outer world was so big before, but now that I know, I'll definitely have to go out and see it. I'll definitely come to find you. And if I didn't go looking for you, one of my brothers would start crying and making a fuss, laughed Long Chen. He thought of Guoran. It seemed that the place Xie Qianqian was from was perfectly suited for Guoran. He would definitely go crazy trying to get there. Really? Great. Xie Qianqian excitedly held Long Chen's hand. My all-devil star field isn't too big. It only contains 3,600 stars. The black stars belong to the all-devil race, while the red stars are our territory. It's easy to look for. When you go to the all-devil star field, go to any red star and ask for the All-Devil Slaying Dragon Academy. Everyone knows about it. I made so much profit this time. Not only will I be able to pay for my tuition, but it'll also be enough to buy all kinds of material, experimental equipment, and various tools. So you definitely have to come find me. I swear I'll make you the strongest armor in all of history. All right. It just so happens that I want to know more about the all-devil race. I'll take a trip there sooner or later, said Long Chen. The all-devil monster he had encountered in Pill Valley's Heaven Dragon Flame region had said that Lord Brahma was someone who had betrayed his master. Long Chen felt an intense hatred for Lord Brahma and fallen Day-Night that came from within his bones. If the Nirvana scripture was created by Lord Brahma, then he should feel hatred for it as well, but he felt very familiar and close to the Nirvana scripture instead. This riddle had always disturbed him. Now that he knew the outside world was so big, he definitely had to take a trip there. He felt a constant sense of crisis when it came to the Pill's sovereign memories and the origins of the 9-star Hegemon body art. However, there was nothing he could do about that right now. He could only take things step by step. Here, let's pinky swear. You will have to come and find me. Xie Qianqian extended a hand with her pinky finger raised. Long Chen laughed involuntarily. Xie Qianqian was really still a child inside. Having lost her parents suddenly had a big impact on her, forcing her to mature and become strong. However, inside her hard outer appearance was a kind, childish heart. Long Chen also raised his pinky and locked it with hers. This could also count as a promise. The two of them continued floating up, finally reaching the surface of the water. They looked around to see an endless black ocean. Above it was a layer of primal chaos. There was a full moon shining brightly within the primal chaos. It lit up the black water. That was a strange sight. In truth, that moon was no moon. It was a circular hole, but due to the distance, it looked like a moon. That should be the exit, exclaimed Xie Qianqian. Although the two of them were floating on the water, the laws of the Netherworld were still present. They couldn't fly, and they couldn't jump up there. Xie Qianqian took a deep breath and circulated her mental energy. The two of them began to slowly float toward the sky. Hey, wait a second. Suddenly, Evelmun's voice rang out in Long Chen's mind. Ever since they had been sucked into the whirlpool and it had been forced to use up all its energy to protect Long Chen, Evil Moon had gone silent. Long Chen knew that it was furious at him for being an idiot, and so it was ignoring him. As for Long Chen, he wasn't foolish enough to try talking to it in its mood. Why bother getting himself cursed out? However, he was surprised that Evil Moon would take the initiative to speak to him. Qian, wait a moment. Long Chen quickly stopped Qian. Evil Moon, what is it? Ooh. Sometimes your actions aren't entirely wrong. Evil Moon hemmed and hawed. What? If you have something to say, then just say it, said Long Chen. Fine, then I'll say it directly. I sensed a treasure in the water here. It'll be very useful to me, said Evil Moon awkwardly. Hearing that, Long Chen immediately understood why Evil Moon was hemming and hawing. It was embarrassed. It had cursed Long Chen in its fury for being stupid and saving Qian, but now there was something it needed in this place that they only came to because Long Chen had entered with Qian. All its fury ended up being thrown back into its face. However, that treasure had to be very important to it, or it wouldn't thicken its face to ask for Long Chen's help. Long Chen couldn't help but smile. If he mocked it a bit, he would definitely fully avenge all the cursing it gave him, but he didn't do so. Although Evil Moon was an evil weapon, it was very prideful. Harming others to make oneself feel amazing was the most foolish thing to do. Long Chen definitely didn't want to end up like the old man and Chu Jianying, hurting each other each time they opened their mouths. Long Chen pointed. Qian, can you go in that direction first? There's something I need there. All right. Qian didn't know what he wanted to do, but she brought him slowly floating in that direction. When they got closer to the spot Evil Moon had indicated, Qian turned pale. There was a giant black dragon lying on top of the water. It emitted a terrifying pressure. Even Long Chen jumped in fright. There was actually a black dragon here. When he looked at its sharp fangs, he felt a stabbing pain in his soul. What is that? Demanded Long Chen. This is a close relative of my dark evil dragon race. They're called Purgatory evil dragons. It seems it had its dragon soul extracted and its corpse tossed here. However, its soul essence is still intact. That soul essence is perfect for me. I have to get it, said Evil Moon. Its fury had completely vanished. Clearly, this Purgatory evil dragon's soul essence was much better for it than the energy it had obtained from the blood gourd. Long Chen slowly approached the dragon's corpse. Qian was starting to pant, as she was unable to endure the dragon's pressure. Qian, back up for now. Long Chen grabbed onto one of the Purgatory evil dragon's scales and climbed up. The Purgatory evil dragon was extremely terrifying. Its pressure rendered the laws present ineffective. He was able to move freely on its body without being stuck by the strange, sticky energy present. Once he climbed up, he came to fully appreciate just how huge the corpse was. It had to be measured in the thousands of miles. Evil Moon, was your body this big originally as well? Of course I was even bigger. Stop wasting words and go to its head. We have to extract its soul essence, urged Evil Moon. Long Chen climbed upward. He had to run a while on the dragon's body to get to its head. Fuck, just a head is hundreds of miles wide. Long Chen looked at the two soaring dragon horns with amazement. Keep going forward. A bit more. Okay, stop here, directed Evil Moon. Long Chen took a deep breath and stabbed Evil Moon into the skull. Evil Moon unleashed a burst of light and instantly grew larger, stabbing deep into the dragon's skull. The dead Purgatory evil dragons suddenly began to rumble and explode. Powerful shockwaves blew Qian far into the distance, making Long Chen jump in shock. Don't worry, its dragon soul has long since vanished. This is just an instinctual twitching from having its soul essence stabbed, said Evil Moon. Evil Moon was like a heavenly blade now. Long Chen felt like an ant in front of it. Light flowed around Evil Moon as it absorbed the soul essence of the Purgatory evil dragon. As it said, the Purgatory evil dragon was already dead, and its movements were just an automatic reaction. Evil Moon didn't need Long Chen's help to absorb its energy, so Long Chen ran over to the skull's crown. What sharp teeth! Dragon teeth are definitely good stuff. Long Chen's eyes began to shine. He jumped beside the teeth. Each tooth was as large as a mountain. When he punched it, it caused a metallic ringing, but the tooth didn't budge. Instead, Long Chen's fist hurt. Just at this moment, Evil Moon flew out of the skull and returned to its original size. However, its aura was now darker and more sinister. It had clearly benefited greatly. Hey, don't just help yourself. I want this Purgatory evil dragon. Help me take it. Long Chen formed a hand seal and circulated the primal chaos space. A vortex appeared behind him. Evil Moon let out a startled cry. You can't take it. Its dash, before it could finish speaking, the Purgatory evil dragon's corpse was pulled into the air by Long Chen's power. However, before it could be absorbed into the primal chaos space, countless chains flew out of the black water. They instantly bound Long Chen and the Purgatory evil dragon. Fuck, I forgot to tell him the corpse is locked by a formation. If anyone tries to take it, they'll provoke the laws present. Evil Moon hastily flew into the air, slashing the chains. Bang! The chains completely rejected Evil Moon's attack and sent it flying back. Not good, I can't break these chains, shouted Evil Moon. These chains contain the laws of Purgatory. In its current sealed state, there was no way it could sever them. In the distance, Xia Qianqian jumped in shock. She panicked as Long Chen and the giant dragon were bound by countless black chains. In the end, they turned into a giant black star. It was a terrifying seal. Long Chen. Xia Qianqian had no idea what to do. Her best option would be to abandon Long Chen and fly away to the only exit. She knew she couldn't help, but she also couldn't just leave him. Her mind was blank. Evil Moon repeatedly attacked the ball of chains, but it couldn't break them. Long Chen, you can't die yet. You still haven't undone my seal, roared Evil Moon. However, it felt like each of its attacks was landing on cotton. It was unable to find any spot to unleash its power. Boom. Suddenly, the chains exploded and the Purgatory evil dragon's corpse was sent flying. Where the ball of chains had been was Long Chen, black chi circulating around him. Endless negative emotions exploded out of him, shocking Xia Qianqian. Long Chen. Xia Qianqian felt that Long Chen was like a completely different person. The current Long Chen looked like an Azura who had slaughtered countless people. He was covered in killing intent. Long Chen's eyes had turned red, and that red was the red of fresh blood. They were glaringly bright. His hair was standing on end as if he had entered a berserk state. A little Purgatory thinks it can trap me? What a joke! Long Chen's voice was the same yet also different. It was like there were two voices overlapping, one that was Long Chen's, and the other that belonged to someone she didn't know. This is... Evil Moon was also shocked. Long Chen raised his head and roared. The chains he had shattered were in the midst of flying back and resealing him when they were blown to dust by his roar. A terrifying ripple spread through the air, tearing apart space. This was an unstoppable power, one that even Purgatory would have to submit to. Huge waves exploded on the black ocean. As it raged, more chains flew out of it at Long Chen. Scram! Those chains were turned to dust. Long Chen no longer appeared human, he was like a god from hell. None of the laws here could subdue him. Is a little Purgatory so amazing? Today I, Long Chen, will completely destroy all your 18 layers. The black chi surging out of Long Chen enveloped him, and he was about to charge back into the black ocean when Evil Moon slammed the back of his head with its hilt, knocking him unconscious. He's been possessed. Hurry and bring him away, shouted Evil Moon at Xia Qianqian. It returned to Long Chen's primal chaos space. Xia Qianqian was still a bit stunned. Things had happened so suddenly that she didn't even know what was happening. She hastily grabbed the unconscious Long Chen and unleashed her mental energy to float through the air. The ocean and the air were filled with that sticky spatial law, making it impossible to fly quickly. However, she was comforted to see that once Long Chen was unconscious and Evil Moon disappeared, the raging ocean returned to calm. No more chains came flying out. What's going on? How could there be another kind of energy hiding within Long Chen's body? Evil Moon was deeply shocked. Just now, Long Chen had transformed into someone else. Fortunately, his subconscious still viewed it as a partner, or it wouldn't have been able to knock him unconscious. The state Long Chen had just been in made Evil Moon feel very uneasy. There was something hidden in Long Chen's body that made it feel afraid. They finally got close to the white light. Without Xie Qianqian having to do anything, a suction force came from the white light, drawing them inside. Xie Qianqian felt the world spinning around her. It was like space was thrown into chaos. She almost fainted. After a moment, she let out a startled cry as she found that the two of them were falling from the sky. The two of them dropped onto the ground. Long Chen landed first, while Xie Qianqian landed on him. They rolled like calabashes. Long Chen slowly opened his eyes from the collision. It hurts. Long Chen reached out and rubbed the back of his head, feeling a large bump. He thought that it was from falling and was about to say something when he saw several life forms around them, staring at them in shock. This is the gates of hell? Long Chen looked around and saw the large gates he had seen before. He let out a delighted cry. They really had come out alive. Zigaluka, one of the life forms, shouted at Long Chen and Xie Qianqian as they stood. Long Chen sent it flying with a slap. Fuck, I didn't run from Purgatory to listen to your ugly words. If you don't want to die, then back up. Although he had no idea what it had been saying, based on its appearance, he could tell it had no kind intentions. That life form roared and charged at Long Chen, its hands transforming into two sharp claws. Since you're in such a rush to reincarnate, I'll help you out. Long Chen sneered and took out Evil Moon, slashing it. The life form exploded into dust. The surrounding life forms all backed up in fright. They had just seen Long Chen and Xie Qianqian fly out of the gates of hell. Naturally, they questioned what they were and what the situation was inside. One of them had paid the price for that. The other life forms all stared at the weapon in Long Chen's hand in fright and backed up. Let's go. Long Chen pulled Xie Qianqian away from the other life forms. Those life forms immediately got out of their way. They arrived at where the staircase was. As expected, Xie Qianqian had walked the orange path, and Long Chen couldn't see the staircase here. That was one of the laws present. Each person could only go through their own path. Long Chen, I'm going to leave. You have to come find me in the future. Xie Qianqian looked at Long Chen. Her eyes reddened slightly. They were about to go on different paths. Although the time she had known Long Chen was short, she had great trust in him. He was the first person she felt any trust in after her parents had died. Don't worry. Study hard once you get back. I'm looking forward to your strongest battle armor. Long Chen smiled warmly and patted Xie Qianqian's head. Xie Qianqian waved goodbye and began climbing a seemingly invisible staircase. Eventually, Xie Qianqian vanished from Long Chen's sight. Once she was gone, Long Chen didn't directly go to the black region to find his staircase. Instead, he returned to the gates of hell. When he was once more standing before the gates of hell, a sinister smile appeared on his face, one that frightened all the other life forms. What had this vicious person come back for? Long Chen, what are you planning? Don't tell me you want to tear off the doors, exclaimed Evil Moon. Why would you say that? Am I such an unreasonable person? Look at how big this door is. There's no way I can carry such a thing, said Long Chen. Stop trying to fake it. After knowing you all this long, I've never once seen you be a reasonable person. Don't be a fool, warned Evil Moon. Evil Moon had originally thought that its guts were pretty big. After all, it had dared to challenge a sovereign, which had resulted in it paying a miserable price. However, after knowing Long Chen, it felt itself to be a coward in comparison. Long Chen couldn't be described as just having big guts. No, he was a madman. Don't worry, I have a plan. Evil Moon, help me out. Don't you think you should help me get some trump cards? Long Chen smiled mischievously. What are you planning? Do you see the nail on the lower left of the door? I want to take it. Long Chen pointed to a nail on the huge door. There were countless nails on this giant door. The door was pitch black, but the nails emitted divine light. They were definitely something good. Are you crazy? You want to take the nails of the gates of hell? Roared Evil Moon. Was this something a sane person would think of? Riches naturally had to be taken from danger. Long Chen ignored Evil Moon's roaring. He looked at the blood essence stones, blood soul stones, as well as the chains and blades from the skinners that he had in his primal chaos space. He couldn't help but sigh. This time, his trip had been very profitable. In fact, Long Chen had an urge to go take a look at the second level of Purgatory to see what else he could get. Right now, though, it was the nails that made him excited. You madman, the gates of hell definitely have their own restrictions on them. If you take a nail, it will definitely disturb some terrifying existence, shouted Evil Moon. We'll just try it. Worst case, we turn and run. Furthermore, I feel like these gates only allow people through but not out. Whatever's inside should also be restricted and not able to come out. What do you think? Well, that does seem logical, but this is way too dangerous. With my current power, there's no way for me to fight against the existences here. If something unexpected happens, we won't even have a place to cry, said Evil Moon. It's fine, let's just try it. If we succeed, I'll have gained another terrifying trump card. Long Chen didn't waste any more time trying to convince Evil Moon. He ran directly to the door. All the life forms attacking the Nether Passage realm fell back. The sight of Long Chen killing that powerful life form before had shocked them. None of them dared to fight against him. Once Long Chen was close enough, he jumped up and began to run along the door to get higher. He only reached the nail after half an incense stick's worth of time. Only once he was there did he realize the doornail was even larger than what he had thought. Just this single doornail had a diameter of thousands of meters. In front of this nail, Long Chen was like a dragonfly trying to shake a tree. Evil Moon stabbed into a crack between the nail and the door. Long Chen slowly began to push. Evil Moon, are you all right? Don't worry, although I haven't recovered my power, my body is hard enough, said Evil Moon. Long Chen began to use his full power, forcing the nail out of the door. As he increased his power, the nail began to shudder. The life forms stared lifelessly at Long Chen's actions. When they saw that he wanted to take the door, they all turned green and began to shout. It really is possible. Long Chen saw that the nail was starting to rise slowly. However, as the nail slowly rose, the gates of hell began to shake. At the same time, divine might crashed down. The life forms all fled for their lives. Long Chen, I think we should just let it go. I'm feeling dizzy, shouted Evil Moon. We'll finish it in one burst. Long Chen shouted, and he activated his divine ring and 5-star battle armor. Boom. The world shook as the huge nail flew out of the gates of hell. At that instant, a berserk aura came from within the gates of hell. Terrifying killing intent filled the world. The small crack of the two doors opened wider. Is a monster about to come out? In that instant, Long Chen felt a chill as some kind of energy locked onto him. Lightning flashed on his feet and lightning wings appeared on his back. He tossed the nail into the primal chaos space and fled. A huge hand suddenly came out of the gates of hell and reached toward Long Chen. Bye. However, Long Chen was too fast. He reached the whirlpool in an instant and fled up the staircase near the Black Lake. The hand missed. Just as Long Chen thought that the danger had passed, that hand snaked up from below and reached out for him again. It can curve like this? Long Chen let out a startled cry and slashed Evil Moon at it. Boom. Long Chen was sent flying up the waterfall. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, feeling like his body was about to break apart. He couldn't help being shocked. That hand contained the laws of this world. His power was unable to block it. Originally, going from the bottom to the top would have required a long time, but thanks to the attack, he flew out like a shooting star. Borrowing its power, he began to flee along the wooden logs. However, the huge hand followed him, once more slamming toward him. It was too big to dodge. Long Chen let out a furious roar and attacked. However, his saber image exploded, and he coughed up blood once more. How can this thing be so strong? Raged Long Chen. How could it not be so strong? It's condensed by the laws of this place. It won't stop until it kills you, said Evil Moon irritably. Long Chen was repeatedly blown back by the hand. He repeatedly coughed up blood. However, its attacks also increased Long Chen's speed. He quickly saw the bridge ahead of him. Just a bit more. Hope appeared in Long Chen's eyes. As long as he returned to the gate, he would be able to leave the Netherworld. Boom. Long Chen blocked once more and was sent flying by the large hand. This time, he smashed into one of the monstrosities on the bridge. The two of them tumbled back. The monstrosity's eyes suddenly turned sharp, and runes revolved around it as it attacked Long Chen. Long Chen immediately grabbed hold of its chain and gave it a vicious slap in the face, also wrestling the chains from it. The chains transformed into divine runes that attacked him like millions of vipers. They actually weren't true chains. Raging flames incinerate the heavens. Golden flames exploded out of him, burning the runes around him into ashes. As for the large hand, it returned, striking again. It seemed it really wouldn't stop until he was dead. Long Chen had no time to deal with it. He ran, barely dodging its attack. Its strike ended up breaking the bridge. Long Chen fled as fast as he could. He quickly saw many gates open in the darkness. He had already determined which one was the old man's, and just as he was about to run through, he came to a stop. He was being followed by that large hand. What if when he fled, the hand destroyed the old man's gate? Then the old man wouldn't be able to return. Fuck, why didn't I think of this problem? Long Chen was vexed. He couldn't go through the other gates, because once he did, he would enter that person's body. Who knew whether these gates would lead to the body of a human or a demon? What if they led to a completely different star field? One mistake, and he would never be able to return to the martial heaven continent. The hand once more slammed toward him. Long Chen blocked it again, but this time, his bones almost shattered. He felt like he was reaching his limit. What do I do? Long Chen's heart raced. There was no other choice. He could only randomly pick a door. No matter what, he couldn't implicate the old man. Just as he was preparing to randomly pick a gate to go through, a fluctuation came from the surrounding space. A new gate opened, and an elder walked out. When Long Chen saw that elder's robes, he almost wept tears of joy. This old fellow really had come at the right time. Old fellow, I'm going to borrow your gate. Many thanks. That elder had just entered the Netherworld and didn't even know what was going on when he was grabbed by Long Chen and thrown into the distance. At the same time, Long Chen charged into his gate. Long Chen. The elder was wearing robes of the corrupt path. He only recognized Long Chen once he was tossed aside. He had just recognized Long Chen when he was blown to pieces by the hand. The hand slammed into his gate, destroying it. However, Long Chen had vanished. The darkness was familiar. By the time the gate was destroyed, Long Chen had already escaped through it. Stimulating. Long Chen sighed with relief. That really had been dangerous at the end. He had almost made a big mistake. That huge hand had been a manifestation of the laws of the Netherworld. Now that he had left, it would also vanish. The old man's gate would be fine. Long Chen, do you remember how you escaped from Purgatory at the end? Asked Evil Moon suddenly. You know what, I really can't remember. I was caught by the chains when trying to take the Purgatory evil dragon corpse. I remember struggling and not being able to escape the chains. And then my head's blank. My next memory is appearing outside the gates of hell. What happened in the middle? Asked Long Chen. Hello? Why aren't you saying anything? Asked Long Chen when Evil Moon didn't reply. Evil Moon was silent for a long time. Eventually it said, It's nothing. You managed to forcibly escape from Purgatory. It makes sense that Purgatory would erase those memories. The only strange thing is that it only erased a portion of your memories. Curious. In the end, Evil Moon decided to conceal what had happened to Long Chen in the end. It had sensed something, and after considering it, it decided that Long Chen shouldn't learn of this. That makes sense. Anyone who returns from the Netherworld has their memories erased. But I didn't go through the gates of hell, so I only had a portion erased. It seems the Netherworld really is strange. Long Chen nodded. The majority of Nether Passage experts were not as amazing as Chu Jianying. Chu Jianying had managed to seal a portion of her memories and bring them out, but the majority of Nether Passage experts had all their memories erased by some mysterious energy. It was said that the Netherworld existed on a Yin plane, while the world of the living existed on a Yang plane, which meant that memories of the other plane had to be erased. However, this was just a guess, and it was just what everyone said. There was no solid proof of the matter. Long Chen, have you ever felt yourself to be evil or very sinister? Asked Evil Moon suddenly. What? Did you take the wrong medicine this morning? Aren't you an evil weapon that has slaughtered countless people? Don't you feel embarrassed calling me evil? Long Chen was speechless. All right, let's not talk about that then. Evil Moon shut its mouth. It felt that its own communication abilities were lacking. It couldn't pull any useful information out of Long Chen without him sensing something. Evil Moon, why are you acting strange? Asked Long Chen curiously. It's nothing. I'm going to absorb the Purgatory Evil Dragon's soul essence. I won't be able to help you during this time, so try to act calm. After that, Evil Moon fell silent. Long Chen clearly felt that Evil Moon's words were a bit strange and off from how it usually acted. He was about to ask it for more details when his body shook. Long Chen opened his eyes. He found himself to be in a sealed-off room. At this moment, he was a white-haired skinny elder. The moment the Netherworld's laws had been about to kill him, an expert from the corrupt path had attacked the Nether Passage realm. Long Chen had instantly recognized his robes. At that moment, he had been so moved that he had almost cried. This was his first time feeling that the corrupt path's experts also had a lovable side to them. Now that Long Chen had gone through the expert's gate, he had entered his body. That expert's Yuan spirit had been destroyed, and this body had become a masterless object, allowing Long Chen to control it. Long Chen opened the door. The sight that entered his eyes was a naked man and woman sweating and plowing the fields. Both the man and woman were life star experts. In the midst of their plowing, they saw Long Chen walk in. They immediately knelt on the ground, quivering with terror. The woman was especially terrified. Greetings, Patriarch. Long Chen directly pressed a finger against the man's head. A lightning arrow pierced his head, killing him. A rush of information poured through his mind. Long Chen learned that the owner of the body he was in was called Zhao Manchu. He was the old patriarch of the evil spirit sect, while the man he had just killed was the evil spirit sect's new sect leader. As for the woman, that was a bit interesting. She was Zhao Manchu's disciple and his dual cultivation cauldron. However, just the third day after he went into seclusion to attack the Nether Passage realm, she had ended up with the new sect leader. Experts attacking the Nether Passage realm would take at least 3 months to succeed. Some would even take years. The two of them had never expected their old patriarch to return so quickly. Things are a bit messed up now. Long Chen clapped himself on the forehead. He hadn't expected this old ghost to still have such firepower at such an age. However, the old patriarch didn't know that someone else had already given him a green hat. Patriarch, don't kill me. Please, think of the years I've attended you. Long Chen pointed another finger, killing her. If you knew life was so precious, why did you take other people's lives so easily? Sighed Long Chen. If they weren't from the corrupt path, he wouldn't have killed them. Whether or not they wanted to give a green hat to this old ghost had nothing to do with him. However, the corrupt path's hands were covered in the blood of the righteous path. If it was just the blood of the righteous path, he wouldn't care that much. After all, the righteous path didn't have many good people either. However, the corrupt path's first step on their cultivation paths was to kill the innocent commoners and use their blood as proof of their conviction toward their corrupt god. That was something Long Chen couldn't accept. So he didn't feel any guilt about killing them. Long Chen entered a larger palace from his room. Sitting on the throne, he shouted, "All core elders are to come for an emergency meeting." The entire evil spirit sect was shaken. None of its members could understand how their old patriarch had come out so quickly from his seclusion. Greetings, Patriarch. In just a bit, over 70 core elders gathered. Of these people, half were life star experts. This evil spirit sect had to be very powerful. 2 of you go and drag out those 2 brutes inside, ordered Long Chen coldly. All the elders' expressions were odd. 2 of them entered the back of the palace and came out with 2 corpses. Everyone became shocked, but no one said a word. Let me tell you, I'm in a bad mood, a very bad mood, said Long Chen gloomily. The elders were silent out of fear. If such a thing happened to anyone, they would also be in a bad mood. They just prayed that the Patriarch's anger wouldn't fall on them. "Tell me, what had happened during the time I was in seclusion?" demanded Long Chen. Reporting to the old Patriarch, an emissary from Pill Valley came yesterday to discuss something with the sect leader. "He has yet to leave," reported an elder. In truth, Long Chen already knew about this from soul-searching the new sect leader. He was asking on purpose as a cover. After the battle in the Grand Han, Chu Jianying had released the experts from the corrupt path so that they could bring word to the higher-ups of the corrupt path to not be used by Pill Valley. Ever since then, the corrupt path had become much calmer. The corrupt path wasn't led by fools. After being used for so long and suffering such losses, they hadn't gained anything. Pill Valley itself hadn't been bringing out its real power and only using others. In the end, they had retreated like turtles into their shells. That had made the corrupt path very dissatisfied with Pill Valley. That was why the various large forces of the corrupt path had no desire to work with Pill Valley again. Their cooperation had caused the corrupt path to suffer large losses. Before, those losses were secretly paid back with medicinal pills from Pill Valley. However, ever since the matter of Master Long San, their medicinal pill supply had also become tight. As a result, the corrupt path didn't wish to work with them any longer. However, Pill Valley really had some skills. They had taken advantage of when Zhao Manchu was attacking the Nether Passage realm to seduce the new sect leader. "Bring him over," shouted Long Chen. Very quickly, an elder wearing Pill Valley's robes walked in. When Long Chen saw him, he narrowed his eyes slightly. The thing he couldn't comprehend was that he recognized this elder. He was one of Pill Valley's Grand Elders. However, he belonged to the conservative faction. Wasn't the conservative faction supposed to focus on calmly developing and not interfering with the outside world? However, he had actually run over to form a relationship with the evil spirit sect. "Greetings, sect leader Zhao." The Pill Valley elder cupped his fists toward Long Chen with a faint smile. He seemed very relaxed. Long Chen smiled coldly. "What's with that smile? Are you prostituting yourself? Someone come beat him until he's dead." When Long Chen gave his orders, no one could believe their ears. They looked at their patriarch in shock. Had he gone mad? He wanted to kill one of Pill Valley's Grand Elders? "What are you doing?" shouted the Grand Elder. "I've already said that I'm not in a good mood. Anyone who dares to go against my orders will be executed. You all can choose who you'd rather die, him or you," roared Long Chen. "Die." Those elders hesitated no longer and attacked Pill Valley's Grand Elder. "You've gone mad." The Grand Elder roared, and flames exploded out of him. However, there were too many people here. After blocking one attack, he fled outside the palace. "Activate the Grand Formation. Don't let him run," shouted an elder. The Grand Protective Formation was instantly activated, and Pill Valley's Grand Elder suddenly turned into a turtle in a jar. He was besieged by over 30 Life Star experts. Refreshing, truly refreshing. The feeling of playing people to death was truly good. Long Chen watched as the sanctimonious Grand Elder was forced to run miserably. It was a brilliant sight. Whoever kills him will become the new sect leader. Seeing that things weren't lively enough, Long Chen added some extra spice. Long Chen now had the title of the old patriarch of the evil spirit sect. Looking through the memories of the sect leader he had just slain, Long Chen couldn't help but sigh. This Zhao Mangquan was really unlucky. Just as his longevity was running out, he had managed to comprehend life and death, reaching half-step Nether Passage. After a year of preparing himself, he had made his determination to attack the Nether Passage realm. However, he had only just stepped into the Netherworld when he was killed by Long Chen, and his body was taken over by Long Chen's Yuan spirit. However, this was not technically a possession since he was unable to use Zhao Mangquan's energy. He was only able to use his own energy within this body. He couldn't activate the corrupt path's techniques. Possession required a long time to stabilize, and doing so would cause his Yuan spirit to adapt to this body. Then when he returned to his real body, it would feel unnatural. Although possessing Zhang Mengquan's body would allow Long Chen to use this old fellow's status to do many things, for example personally taking a trip to Pill Valley, the ancient races, the ancient family alliance, the Xian beasts, making some money, killing some people, and venting some rage, it wasn't worth it in the long run. That was why Long Chen was just controlling the physical body. If a real fight started, he would be exposed. However, even if he couldn't personally fight, just this husk was enough for him to do many things. For example, getting this Grand Elder of Pill Valley killed. When Long Chen said that whoever killed him would become the new sect leader, all those Life Star experts' eyes turned red. Although that Grand Elder was powerful and surrounded by intense flames, he was an alchemist, not a flame cultivator. In just a few seconds, he was surrounded by danger on all sides. Zhang Mengquan, you've gone insane. Do you know the consequences for this? Roared the Grand Elder. He was unable to comprehend why the evil spirit sect's old patriarch would act like this. Fool, you bewitched my disciple while I was attacking the Nether Passage realm, wanting to completely overturn my evil spirit sect. If I don't give your Pill Valley a harsh lesson, won't you start thinking that the entire corrupt path is your dog? All of you, start using some real power. You're all cowards. Even now, you don't dare to kill him? You useless things, if you don't start fighting seriously, you'll regret it. Shouted Long Chen furiously. He had noticed that although these corrupt experts looked to be fighting fiercely, they were all holding back. They clearly wanted to capture the Pill Valley Grand Elder alive rather than kill him. After all, a Grand Elder was an extremely important position in Pill Valley. They were afraid. However, following Long Chen's shout, these people clenched their teeth. One of them raised his blade, and blood-colored light exploded out of it, transforming into countless skulls that attacked the Grand Elder. That Grand Elder raised flame barriers, but the skulls blasted large holes through them. As his defenses were torn apart, the other corrupt experts didn't hesitate. They attacked. At this moment, it revealed how vicious the corrupt path's experts were. With his defenses broken, the others all launched their strongest killing blows. The Grand Elder was instantly annihilated in body and soul. But a person must be firm and decisive. If you hesitate over everything, what accomplishments could you possibly have? If you always wait to see what other people are doing before you act, you won't even be able to grab crap while it's still warm. You? Yes, you're the next sect leader. Long Chen pointed at the corrupt elder who had attacked at full power first. That elder was delighted and hastily fell to his knees and kowtowed. The other elders were holding parts of the Grand Elder's corpse. The one holding his head couldn't help being disappointed. He had thought that he would be the next sect leader. You don't like it? A sect leader must have further vision and daring. Without that daring, what could you possibly accomplish? The opportunity was right in front of you, but you let it slip away for nothing. Tell me, how could I possibly give the sect to you? Long Chen looked at the elders with disappointment. Patriarch's teachings are correct. Those elders hastily bowed. His words were correct. All of them had hesitated. It was just that one of them had been one step faster than the others. As a result, that one step had resulted in him becoming the sect leader. His status was instantly elevated far above them. Everyone returned to the palace. Long Chen slowly walked back in with his hands clasped behind his back and sat on the throne. The gates were closed tightly, and a formation was activated to turn this into a restricted space. No one else could get close. The elder that was the future sect leader respectfully stood by Long Chen's side. That was a sign of his new status. When Long Chen wasn't present, everyone would have to listen to him. Although he wanted to conceal it and act low-key, he couldn't conceal his excitement. Just now, he had been standing with the rest. Now, he was standing beside the Patriarch. To say the others weren't jealous would be a lie. However, what could they do? Don't blame your Patriarch for not giving you a chance. You all had this opportunity, but you hesitated, letting one person grasp it. Now I'll give you another chance. As long as you can grab hold of it, although you won't be able to be promoted to sect leader, I guarantee you can easily comprehend life and death when you reach the peak of the Life Star realm. I will easily promote you to half-step nether passage, said Long Chen. What? All the elders were shocked. How could it be so easy to go from the peak of life star to half-step nether passage? Perhaps you don't believe me? It's true, in the rest of the world, there's no one else who can do this. However, I can. Long Chen waved his hand, and a thick black chain appeared. All the elders let out startled cries and retreated as it thudded into the ground. They didn't sense any pressure from the chain, but they did sense a powerful aura of death that made them instinctively distance themselves from it. It was like being too close would cause their life force to rot. All the elders were stunned. Some of them were old monsters that had lived for hundreds or thousands of years, but even people as experienced as them couldn't recognize what material this chain was made of. This chain is a priceless treasure I obtained from the Netherworld. As long as your cultivation base reaches the peak of life star, you can understand the true essence of death by binding yourself with these chains. You'll be able to experience the process of going from living to dead, from dead to living. After a few times, you'll come to naturally understand life and death, said Long Chen. You really are a conner. If they bound themselves with these chains, well, I believe the part about experiencing going from living to dead, but the dead to living part? Absolute nonsense. Just as Long Chen was conning these people, Evil Moon couldn't help opening its mouth. This chain was the weapon of one of the Skinners from Purgatory. The death energy coming from it would guarantee that anyone who touched it would die. Now you want to talk? Didn't you say you were going into seclusion? Raged Long Chen. By going into seclusion, I meant I am busy absorbing energy and can't help you fight. It doesn't mean I have to keep my mouth shut, said Evil Moon indifferently. Long Chen ignored it. He was holding the chains in his hands, as this body was already dead, while his Yuan's spirit wasn't afraid of it. He continued. This chain comes from the Netherworld and can allow one to experience the cycle of life and death. However, don't start dreaming too early. The chain only guarantees that you can comprehend life and death. As for surviving the Netherworld, it'll be up to your luck. As for me, have you all not noticed that the fluctuations of my Yuan spirit are completely different from before? Could it be? Patriarch, you've already become a nether passage expert? The elders cried out in shock. Long Chen didn't reply and laughed instead. As for what that meant, he left it up to them. This mysterious laughter shocked these elders, as well as delighted them. Ignoring the nether passage realm, just the half-step nether passage realm was something countless life star experts wouldn't dare to achieve even in their dreams. So, let me tell you. In the future, Pill Valley will just be a fart. With this chain, in less than 100 years, our evil spirit sect can give rise to over 100 nether passage experts. Half-step nether passage experts will number in the thousands. At that time, we'll unite the corrupt path and topple the righteous path. The martial heaven continent will be ours. As for Pill Valley, who gives a damn? Long Chen's words shocked and delighted these elders, as well as inspired them. This fortune had truly come suddenly. However, there is only one chain, and it is to be our evil spirit sect's secret treasure. No one is to spread a word of it past these walls, otherwise, Long Chen's expression suddenly turned cold. Patriarch, don't worry. We will add these memories to the corrupt god seal so that no one can learn of it, cried an elder. Good. You're quite smart. Then let's discuss the plan for dominating the martial heaven continent within 100 years. The majority of you are at the life star realm, and as long as you have enough resources, you can quickly reach half-step nether passage. However, I don't want just you to advance. I want everyone to advance collectively and continuously over time. To do that requires one thing: money, and a lot of it at that. That's why all of you must listen well. Our evil spirit sect needs money, so all of you are to go borrow money from all the various sects using the name of the evil spirit sect. It doesn't matter how high the interest rate is. The only thing that matters is how much money you can get. Even if they want our divine item as collateral, even if they want a personal IOU from me, that's all fine. This is called borrowing chickens to get eggs. We will use their money to raise our power, and in 100 years, the martial heaven continent will be ours. At that time, would we still even need to repay that money? The most important thing now is to gather as much money as possible, but remember not to expose the matter of the Netherworld chain to anyone. I will decide what order you get to advance to half-step nether passage based on how much money you can get. Of course, the first one will be the new sect leader, but the rest of the rankings are up to you all. I should also tell you that the more you contribute and the more money you gather, the greater your position will be in the future. You've already missed one chance, so if you miss this second chance, no one will be able to help you. Go. Chen waved his hand, and those elders instantly vanished from sight as they flew out of the palace. Chen, you really are shameless. I, Evil Moon, have never seen someone like you in all my years, sighed Evil Moon emotionally. The facts proved that people's potential was really limitless. As long as you could give someone a target that was easily obtained, they would unleash unimaginable power. It was unknown whether it was due to the identity of the Patriarch, or whether it was because Chen's conning skills were simply so great, or perhaps it was a combination of both, but these elders who had lost their chance to become the new sect leader all went crazy fighting for this chance. None of them wanted to give up a second chance. After returning to their homes and gathering their things, they rushed off to sects that they had a decent relationship with. As elders of a sect, they all had their circle of friends. Some of these elders were friends with elders from other sections. Some were even close enough to certain sect leaders to call them brother. After all, the Evil Spirit sect was quite famous within the Eastern Xian region's corrupt path. Back when Chen had charged into the corrupt path's minor worlds to take their heaven and earth spirit spring, the Evil Spirit sect had contributed greatly to the force that had managed to drive him away. Those elders immediately went to the sects that they had the closest relationships with and directly asked to borrow money. They were afraid others would take the initiative first. In any case, the Patriarch had already said that the Evil Spirit sect would be filled with nether passage experts in just 100 years. No matter how much they borrowed, they didn't need to worry about it. Even an insane interest rate was no problem. In any case, they were borrowing the money under the name of the Evil Spirit sect, with the backing of their Patriarch. As a result, practically all the Eastern Xian region's corrupt paths sects ended up visited by at least one elder of the Evil Spirit sect. Countless sects loaned money to them. One reason was because the Evil Spirit sect was a top-level sect, and they hoped to form a good relationship with them. Other than that, the Evil Spirit sect promised to repay them with extremely high interest. They promised to double their investment in 100 years. Not only could they form a good relationship with the Evil Spirit sect, but they could also gain so much profit. Where would one even look for such a great thing? Moreover, the Evil Spirit sect's elders conducted their money borrowing in absolute secrecy. They demanded whoever they borrowed money from to keep it secret as well. They were not to divulge a single word of what was happening. Chen was sitting in the Evil Spirit sect, with a large list hanging inside the palace. The list ranked the various elders' contributions. However much money they had gathered was listed beside their names. Yes, it was fair, very fair. Those elders seemed to have become insane as they borrowed as much money as possible, using any means necessary, from threats to promises, all to increase their own ranking. Some elders even went to rob their close relatives and friends, while they also brought out all their own savings. Chen sat there, spending each day counting money. He waited for the elders to come by, kneel toward him, and offer him a spatial ring. Each time, Chen would accept it without his face turning red at all. At the same time, he would encourage them to work harder, even saying that there was no need to be so rigid in their methods. The method by which they obtained the money didn't matter. What mattered were the results, not the process. When Chen said this, Evil Moon became speechless. Are you telling them to steal and plunder? Chen shook his head. That's their own problem. I've given them a kitchen knife, but as for what kind of food they make, it has nothing to do with me. You gave them a knife and then pointed them to other people's heads. What kind of food are you expecting? The only food you're getting is pig heads. A master can open the gates, but cultivation depends on the person. The Tao is limitless and depends on each person's comprehension. Take me for example. I'm unlucky, and I have to fight for everything I get. However, I'm luckier than them, in that although I come from poor origins, I have a warm mother and a heroic father. They didn't try to brainwash me. They gave me a blank sheet and let me paint what I wanted. As for these people, there's already no saving them. They've been brainwashed by their so-called corrupt god. They don't even have their own thoughts. Not conning them would be letting down their years of brainwashing. I should tell you, the corrupt paths fellows are all very perseverant. They're vicious to others and vicious to themselves. That's why you should just watch. A shocking amount of money is about to come in. As Chen predicted, on just the second day he received his first receipts. There were 10 million spirit crystals, but it was just a start. The first elder who came to give him a spatial ring immediately rushed off after handing him the money. By the third and fourth days, Chen was barely keeping up with recording how much they had earned. He was making so much that he was almost tired of recording it all. As Chen kept track of the money, the new sect leader kept track of the rankings. By the seventh day, Chen had taken in 480 million spirit crystals. Fuck, I didn't expect that the corrupt path to be so rich. Chen was shocked inside, but he didn't show it. He simply continued increasing the pressure on the elders, saying that they could use the sect's divine item as collateral. If the other side didn't believe it, they could come to the evil spirit sect and he would personally speak with them. Once Chen threw that into the mix, there were dozens of new loans approved, and his wealth leaped to 930 million spirit crystals. After another 3 days, Chen found that this was about the limit. The evil spirit sect's movements had not gone unnoticed. Although they had carried everything out secretly, there was no way such large movements could be made without raising suspicion. Chen was sure that it wouldn't be long before people would come to investigate. At this time, Chen made the wisest decision. On a moonless, stormy night, he patted his butt and left. The disappearance of their patriarch went unnoticed for 3 days before all the evil spirit sect's experts were thrown into a panic. It was just at that time that the corrupt path's higher-ups from the central Xian region came to investigate. Clearly the evil spirit sect's movements had been reported by others. This investigation revealed that the patriarch had vanished. As for the story Chen had come up with about creating countless half-step nether passage experts, it was also exposed. The entire eastern Xian region's corrupt path went crazy. Only at this time did they realize that they had been tricked. Practically, all the corrupt sects in the eastern Xian region had loaned money to the evil spirit sect. When the central Xian region's experts came to investigate, they were stunned to find that all this money had been whisked away by the patriarch. Many people were now holding IOUs in their hands and had no idea who they were supposed to find to get the money. All the evil spirit sect's money had vanished as well. The entire corrupt path was enraged. Ever since the corrupt path had been established, they had never encountered such a thing. The higher-ups were infuriated and went all out to find Zhao Mengkuan. Unfortunately for them, Chen had long since disguised Zhao Mengkuan's body and headed off to the heaven-splitting battle sect. When he was close to the heaven-splitting battle sect, he took out his Yuan spirit and burned Zhao Mengkuan's body to ashes with the heaven-incinerating flame. He left behind no traces. Later, the corrupt path's higher-ups asked Heavenly Fate Island to calculate the fate of Zhao Mengkuan, only to find that he had long since died. After a careful analysis, they found that he had been dead even before he had come out of seclusion. The corrupt path was shocked. No matter how amazing Heavenly Fate Island was, they could only read the fates of living people. Dead people, especially matters relating to the Netherworld, couldn't possibly be calculated. In the end, this matter was added to the ranks of the 4 mysteries of the corrupt path. Even countless years later, no one managed to figure this mystery out. However, due to the Patriarch, one of Pill Valley's Grand Elders had been killed. As for how Pill Valley and the corrupt path settled that bill, only they knew. Chen took a deep breath and slowly opened his eyes. The old man was sitting calmly in front of him. Their palms were still pressing against each other. The old man's eyes were still closed, and his aura had vanished. It was like he had died. "Old man, you have to come back." Long Chen made a prayer inside. The Netherworld was truly dangerous. The slightest mistake would cause someone to lose their life. Long Chen carefully retreated from this place. This was a private room, and the heaven-splitting blade was protecting it. There was even a formation outside isolating it. This was the safest place in the heaven-splitting battle sect. Long Chen exited. The bosses were guarding the entrance and immediately began to ask him what had happened. "Little fellow, what happened? How did your Yuan spirit come from outside?" Long Chen's movement arts might be able to conceal his Yuan spirit from the regular disciples, but there was no way he could have snuck into this room with the 7 bosses guarding it. Long Chen hadn't explained at that time and had entered to return to his body before saying anything. Now that he came out, the 7 bosses crowded him. The matter of Long Chen entering the Netherworld was only known by them. Not even Bao Buping and Chang Hao were told. It wasn't that they didn't trust them, but that the 2 of them were still young. They weren't experienced enough, and who knew what would accidentally come out of their mouths. Everything went smoothly. Long Chen didn't dare to tell them everything. All he said was that he and the old man had gone through everything up to the gates of hell smoothly. On the way back, he had encountered someone from the corrupt path called Zhao Mengkuan, slain him, and then entered his body through his gate. He gave a simple explanation of what he had done in the corrupt path to con money. Whenever he wanted to mention what exactly happened in Purgatory, Long Chen felt a faint sense of unease, so he didn't mention it in the end. This kind of unease didn't stem from himself, it was unease for the 7 bosses. He now realized at least one restriction binding him, the existence known as karma. If he told them about everything, it would very likely harm them. "Ha, little fellow, you have some talent. The corrupt path really has been conned." The 7 bosses cried tears of laughter when they heard about how Long Chen had conned the corrupt path. It was definitely satisfying. Perhaps only someone like Long Chen would think of such a con. "This is even better than hacking them with a blade," praised the 4th boss. Although Long Chen's con wouldn't cause the Eastern Xin region's corrupt path to collapse, it could count as at least giving them a serious blow. The new disciples would definitely end up falling far behind the others. Money really was the most frightening thing. Hee, the Shen Tiandao sect needs money to rebuild. I had no choice. Long Chen laughed mischievously. "Don't let it get to your head. Hurry and go back. You've been in seclusion for 2 months. The day before yesterday, I heard that the Shen Tiandao sect's construction already came to a stop. They probably ran out of money," said Boss Bao. "All right, then I'll leave for now." Long Chen said his goodbyes to the bosses. Without saying goodbye to Chang Hao or Bao Buping, he began rushing over to the Shen Tiandao sect. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.